Assalamu alaikum, my dear liberals. It is me, as bitchless as ever, and let me tell you about my day, okay? Like, I was taking a piss in this bush today, right? And I thought about how cool it'd be if I were to, like, you know, just casually go through each of the Call of Duty games and rank them on a tier list. In this 4.5 hour video essay, I'm going to explore why Call of Duty is a really good franchise. Now, I know what you're thinking now that you've seen what this video is all about, but I assure you, my fellow donkeys, that I didn't just combine the ideas for two of my most popular videos, okay? When it comes to ranking and rating these games, I will be taking into account the fun value and the creative value. Because here's the thing about gaming, right? It's fun until it's not. Let me take this moment to tell you something about the zombies community and bias before we begin, alright? Each and every single one of these motherfuckers pretend they ain't biased, but let me tell you something, I say these bitches more biased than Fox News out here. They say they're not biased, but we all know what's up. Like, let's be real. Full disclosure, I am likely the most biased bitch in this community. Like, this 2.5 hour video is literally just Jason Blundell propaganda. I don't know what to tell you. I absolutely love this video just because it's not biased. Bitch, what you mean not biased? Now, when we take a look at the rakefire impala brand, you know, I am literally nobody in the community, but let me tell you that my opinion reigns supreme, and if you didn't get the memo, yeah. It's actually pretty well known on this channel that I am the bringer of based and, more importantly, extremely biased content.
I was only 10 years old. I love Rakefire Impala's channel so much. I always nutted inside of the Rakefire Impala jar. Never regretted any ounce that came out of my meaty pipe. Every single night before I go to bed, I pray to Rakefire Impala, thanking him for the best based and biased content in the whole world.
Now, when it comes to my safety and security, I need security cameras outside my house. I need firearms to defend myself. I need personal bodyguard. Let me just take 10 seconds to say that making this video took years off my lifespan, for real. So there's this membership thing that allows you to use custom Discord emojis on YouTube or some shit. I'm gonna be honest, I got no idea how this shit works, but it looks cool, and I imagine commenting on my videos will look something like this if you're a member. So consider buying me a monthly capricin and getting some custom Discord emojis to boot. Let's take Call of Duty 1, alright? This shit came out in 1964. I was about yay big when it came out, and I didn't even know how to wipe my ass properly, if at all. And as far as creativity in the COD games go, let's just agree that we can leave the multiplayer shit right out. Now, of course, there's a lot that goes into designing a multiplayer mode. All due respect to the teams behind that shit, but it really do be copy-pasted every year, not gonna lie. So what that leaves us with is campaign, and let's not be surprised, guys. Zombies. You tune into the most biased zombies YouTuber in a 5-mile radius. What do you expect me to do? Just leave zombies out the fuck? The thing about the first Call of Duty is that it pushes this concept of fighting in a unit. You ain't Master fucking Chief, brother. You ain't no John Bloodborne either. And you can see this perfectly when you compare the ending of this game to the ending of World at War. While in World at War, you fight your way up the Reichstag with Reznov and code just so that you can plant the flag. In this game, you're not all that special, unfortunately. You are special, but you know, in terms of a narrative, right, this game practically doesn't have one, and it doesn't need to. The point of the game is in the gameplay, hands down. It's safe to say that the gameplay in and of itself is pretty bare bones, so to speak. You can definitely feel the age of the game, and I remember years ago I thought about completing every Call of Duty on veteran difficulty. That's how much of a life I didn't have. So the problem with this game on veteran difficulty is that 1, your health doesn't regenerate. You need to pick up health packs to regen, and 2, it's straight up unfair. Let me just say it straight up. You will have a better time playing Dark Souls without hands, ladies and gentlemen. So when I look back on the time when I spent fucking months getting through only half the game on veteran, let's just say it's definitely not my finest work. The creative aspect of this game, as well as Call of Duty 2, is definitely in how they script each mission. It's classic COD, you know, you have linear ass missions, but the level and sound design paired with the scripted events, you know, that shit ain't easy to do, because otherwise you simply see it everywhere, with everyone succeeding as well as COD does, but that doesn't really happen now, does it? There's just simply not much to this game, and I know that this statement will start World War III, but rest assured that World War IV, 5, and 6 are also gonna start with my statements of the next games. The Soviet campaign definitely takes the cake for being the most fun and engaging part of the game, something that isn't unique to just one COD game. And rest assured that while I'll be putting COD 1 in the broad tier, it'll be much lower without the Soviet campaign, for real. Now, Call of Duty 2 really tickled my nuts funny, because I really didn't expect this game to be this smooth given its age. When I played this game on PC, I was honestly impressed with this game's gunplay. So much about this game set the foundation for Call of Duty as a franchise for years beyond. What I mean by that is, it innovated so much that the team simply couldn't top it, and so they copy pasted the formula of this game for every subsequent Call of Duty game. And you may think I'm joking, but I wish, brother. They perfected the average mission structure, complete with the respective gimmicks, and better like that shit, because you better see it every single year from this point on. You know, everyone's heard those guys that say, oh, Call of Duty is the same thing every year, and it really is, because if you play all of these games back to back, God be with you, brother, you'll bottle that shit up and take it out on your wife and kids for real. Call of Duty 2 took the first game and polished it up that much more. The presentation is phenomenal as well, given its age. I'm telling you, y'all bitches sleeping on this game for real, because beyond all that glamour, you gotta ask, is it fun? Fuck yeah, baby! It doesn't have much of a narrative this time around either, but the way this game plays out is truly ahead of its time. It doesn't need a narrative. It's World War II. The only narrative that you need is beat the Germans. Fuck yeah for America. I'ma put this shit in the book as Steel for show, and it's a decision that I expect many will agree with, as it's neither too bold nor too conservative at this. Now, Call of Duty 3 is probably the only game I've ever played which belongs into the comedy genre rather than the military shooter genre. I have never laughed this much in literally any other game as much as I've laughed here, bro. Like, there are so many design choices here that I just gotta laugh at all of them, bro. Everything from the cliche-ass cookie-cutter Hollywood military movie cutscenes to very enthralling quick-time events. Wow! This game was Treyarch's first mainline Call of Duty game, and it proved just who they really were and what they were gonna do for the franchise. It cemented them as the arcade developer, a sinful title as the people who take their entertainment very seriously will take mortal offense to such an act of turning something very serious and realistic into something fun and arcadey. Growing up, this was actually the game I completely skipped and gave no thought to. There is no nostalgic bias or retrospective analysis that I can pull out of my ass, as I experienced this game with a fresh pair of eyes in April of 2022. And I'll be honest, it doesn't really bring anything considerable to the franchise. It's just cookie cutter garbage, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't have fun with the game. Like, I love it for the laughs it gave me, man. I'm gonna be honest, I ain't willing to negotiate with this placement in the bruh tier. Like, it'd be lower if it weren't for the hilarity of the game, but here we are. Now, I'm one of the few people who look at the MW series as one that is severely overrated and subpar. Look, I get it, MW1 set the foundation for every modern Call of Duty that came after it, but looking at the plot and the intricacies of how the game plays, like, it pales in comparison to other titles in the franchise. What started out as a World War II shooter designed to compete with Medal of Honor created frustration for the devs. Being chained up by your corporate overlords, forced to work on a formulaic and restricted game in a set time period, leaving no room for creativity. Like, it's no wonder that the first game to depart from a historical context into a modern one was in planning for years and years. And the only reason it didn't come out sooner was because of the small company whose name starts with A and ends with Activision. And that remained the status quo for a long time, until obviously Halo 3, a game that generated godly amounts of hype before it ever even came out. Anyone who was around back then knew about the two sexualities one could fall into, a Call of Duty stan or a Halo stan. In 2022, Halo is dwarfed by Call of Duty, but the funny thing is that Call of Duty used to be the underdog for a long time. Playing as John Halo in the hit cinematic masterpiece first-person shooter game Halo was just cool to so many people in ways Call of Duty could never manage. And even when MW came around, it wasn't necessarily the campaign that skyrocketed the franchise toward the position it's now in. It was mostly the multiplayer. In fair play, they were innovating and changing the game a lot here, but of course, as soon as they got it right, they took the formula and reused it for every subsequent year. But anyway, let's talk about the campaign and answer a question. Is it good? Short answer, no. Long answer, no. And to know why, we'll have to dive into a couple of intricacies. First off, in an age where first impressions mean everything, I will admit that my first impressions of this game were equivalent to coming home to find your dog's pee-pee poo-poo on your living room carpet. Now, I always found this game to be boring. So much so that I've probably started a new game 6 to 7 times but never actually finished the game in any of those playthroughs. So not too long ago, I sat down and took a hard, objective look at this game, and I admit there are a few cool tidbits here and there. Let's talk about what bugs me the most, okay? The characters. They have the personality and depth of a fucking oak tree. Now, I'm mainly referring to the villains here. MW plays around with this concept of the 4 horsemen, or 4 main villains. Let's talk about the second horseman, Al Assad. This game has a cinematic level in which you find yourself in the midst of a coup. And then of course you're introduced to the main villains. Now Al-Assad here delivers a very powerful speech on live television before executing the president of Saudi Arabia. The president of a kingdom, I shit you not, ladies and gentlemen. And it's very obvious that our big bad boy here is trying so hard to be, oh, I don't know, Raul Menendez maybe? Call me a Black Ops baby bitch, I'll embrace the title, cause never have I been so disinterested in a villain like this motherfucker over here. God damn, like, you could go on and on about your dreams and ambitions and desires, but who the fuck are you again? What was Infinity Ward's first to go at a fictional narrative exposed the weaknesses of their writing. In the World War II games, they never had to justify any villain. The villains were the Germans, and that's all there was to it. Here, they actually have to try writing a villain for once, and let's just say that Black Ops 2 really has spoiled us. It's the same case for the other horsemen as well. All except one. You know who it is as well as I do. Victor Zakei, obviously I'm talking about Makarov here, come on. And the fucked up thing is that he's still as shallow as pond water, my god. He plays a role in MW2 more than he does here, which is barely a role to begin with. But his whole shtick can be summed up as evil because evil. He has no backstory, we barely understand him as a human and the reasoning behind his intentions. But you could argue that yeah, he doesn't need a tragic Joker backstory and that his motives are simple. Bring back socialism. Death to the US. Some more tanky shit. Death to the US. Makarov is basically an ultra-nationalist who just wants Russia as a superpower. Him and Zakhaev are one and the same, so it helps that I'm taking down 2 or even 3 birds down with 1 stone. Though I have to mention how Makarov is an extreme version of Zakhaev. If this fucking nuke didn't spell it out for you already. Now after a wild goose chase centered around our boy Al-Assad, we get intel that he's holed up in this little place in Iraq. Giving it everything you got, you receive word that there's nuclear threat in the city. And so you all bust ass on there for good thing we made it, huh, Corporal? Now I like and dislike this scene for a number of reasons. First off, I love that after everything I did, I just fucking died. Like, that's a powerful sentiment, honestly. If you ask 10 people what they think of this scene, you'll simply get 10 different answers. One may think it's cool and badass, the other may think it's uncomfortable and scary, and the other may dislike it for its forced death sequence. I like varied opinions on scenes like this. It simply shows that the scene did its job right for there to be so much discussion over it. Unfortunately, the problem lies in the why behind this mission. The only reason we came to this city in Iraq was to take down Al-Assad, but of course my guy was partaking in a massive amount of tomfoolery and pulled the ultimate gamer move. That's all cool and shit, right? But the very next mission you receive new intel that Al-Assad is locked up in this barn in the middle of fucking nowhere like Transit Farm BO2 Zombie. You go there and he is. 1, 2, 3, bonk, and that's all she wrote. Now I feel I don't have to explain this much. It makes the 30,000 nuclear death toll seem like it was all for nothing, and not in a sad, deep way, but in a stupid way. The leading militaries with all their accurate intel got 30,000 people into this mess, and then some irrelevant Russian motherfucker correctly tells you that the guy you were searching for all along is holed up in this barn in bumfuck Ohio. The most memorable part of this game, aside from the nuke scene of course, is undoubtedly the AC-130 mission. Now as a kid playing this mission on the 360, my thought process was as primal as you can possibly get. I see shiny, I pull trigger. Now I'm sure everyone knows where I'm going with this, as when I replayed the game recently, this mission was eerie. First off, it's jarring in that the whole game you play as a soldier on the ground, albeit a very powerful one-man army soldier, but a soldier nonetheless. And then all of a sudden you're thrown into this thing in the sky and you play God. These shiny figures are human beings like you and I. They had emotions, they had memories, love, all of that shit. And don't get me wrong, I'm not sympathizing with the enemy here, but hearing the pilots casually comment on instantaneous obliteration of these men, like, it's absurd, it's bizarre. Are we the baddies? Oh, that sure as shit a possibility for real. I compare the MW games to the Black Ops games a lot, as you may have noticed. So let's approach this sensibly, okay? On one hand, you have grounded and relatively more realistic shooters. Not necessarily realistic, but just relatively more realistic. And on the other hand, you have these cinematic ass Hollywood shooters centered around drama, action more than anything else. Now the question is, can you and should you compare them against each other? And the answer answer is simply yes. Modern Warfare 1, part of its trilogy, is the only grounded entry, and even it faces issue of a one-man army complex, but generally you'd be right to say that it's still grounded in reality, at least compared to Black Ops. When you take MW2 though, that sentiment jumps off a fucking balcony and meets God, cause it does the same shit Black Ops does with its Hollywood-ass cinematic narrative style. Not to mention MW3, like this shit ain't Hollywood, this shit is Bollywood, my guy. Taking that into account, I consider it fair game to compare the MW games to the Black Ops games, and it is my sentiment that the MW games ultimately fail in creatively immersing players as well as the Black Ops games do. The funny thing is, in the development of MW1, the plot took a backseat and level design and gameplay was the main focus, something that very clearly shows playing the game yourself. Ultimately, I'd feel it's reasonable to put this game into the would kiss category. I have to give it some credit for setting up the foundations for the rest of the series to lay on moving forward. Not to mention that the remastered version of this game propelled this game up from bruh tier to would kiss tier. Like, this shit is one of the best remastered games I've ever played. Do not play the original, you'd be doing yourself a disservice. Now, I barely have any words to introduce Call of Duty World at War, okay? It's a far cry from Treyarch's first go at a COD game. Far cry from really any of the other COD games. When I was about yay big, I never was a World at War kid, okay? I was always a Black Ops kid, but I remember booting World at War up here and there on my 360, and I remember the main menu theme leaving me so unnerved and so creeped out. Few things unnerved me like that, you see. The only thing I can really compare it to is when you load up a broken disc on the PS2 and you get met with scenes from Hades Underworld, like the simple instance of me being creeped out so much by the main menu theme of all things. Not only as a kid, but years and years into the future and even in the present still. It really goes to show how much of this game's charm lies in its atmosphere, in its grittiness, in its horror. Treyarch always knew how to do horror right back in the late 2000s. Their subtle trademark ways to unnerve the players really did leave a mark on me. Now let me get one thing straight, okay? With nostalgic bias being a huge promoter of untrustworthiness, I must mention how I had never played this game's campaign as a kid. I'd barely even touched the zombies mode of this game as a kid. In fact, I only gave a shot at the campaign in the late summer of 2019 and experienced the campaign with a fresh pair of eyes. I can confidently state that this game was simply built different, okay? That's not to say that this game is flawless. It is a Call of Duty game after all, but man, what this game does right trumps what it does wrong. Of course, like any other sane individual on this rock floating in space dubbed the Earth, I see the Soviet campaign of this game as its crux. Unsurprisingly, the very heart and soul of this game lies in its Soviet campaign, and I will take this moment to address one major flaw of this game though. While I would argue the biggest strength of World at War is its theme and atmosphere, the gameplay itself falls short if you expect any innovation. Yes, the enemies behave more dynamically relative to the environments that they're in, something very apparent when you fight the Japanese in the jungles, but if you take the experience as a whole, it would not be very much different from Call of Duty 2. Yes, it'll be more polished, but ultimately the same gameplay loop of shooting every enemy over and over again with robotic accuracy and never ever dying. With that being said though, I still remember my balls dropping when I experienced what's arguably one of the most, if not the most iconic mission in Call of Duty history, Vendetta. I consider the World at War soundtrack to be the best in the series. It balances horror in the darkest moments of the game and tensity in the, well, tense moments of the game when you're gunning down every goddamn soldier in a 5-mile radius. For the horror though, it's no surprise that the main menu theme that traumatized me all those years ago rears its ugly head right at the start of Vendetta. This theme plays in the game, marking the start of the most somber and gritty chapter that the game has to offer. Playing as one Dmitry Petrenko, you awaken having passed out in a bloody fountain filled with the bodies of your comrades. You are introduced to legendary Viktor Reznov here, of course, as he tells you all about his little revenge plan against German officer Heinrich Amsel, who's responsible for the massacre. This guy kind of looks familiar. This plays out in a way I take as a refreshing break from the non-stop action Call of Duty is synonymous for. Vendetta tests your patience as you follow Reznov through the derelict buildings. Tension keeps building as he commentates over the stark reality compared to once was. The mission veers closer and closer to its climax, and Call of Duty's scripting prowess starts to show itself in all of its beauty. Finally, you get the payoff you've been striving toward this whole time. With one swift pull of your trigger, Heinrich Amsel falls at last. After a series of missions, your end goal becomes swarming the Reichstag and planting the flag up top. Something done before in the very first Call of Duty, and there are a few differences here that stand out. In the build up to it though, you see a lot of this game's strengths once more. The biggest of which here being its brutality and of course, its soundtrack. On your journey to the heart of the Reich, you get this scene where a Nazi soldier is begging your comrades for mercy, but only gets a rebuke from your comrade asking if he and his people ever showed any mercy to them, before ultimately killing him. I actually hate that this isn't a black and white situation because on one hand, you know, he is a Nazi and they're not to be excused by any means, but your comrade Chernoff here makes a really good point of this being murder and not war. But that's the whole point to begin with, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? Eventually in the same mission, you and your comrades get flooded in this subway. In the penultimate mission, you're shown having survived though, with Reznov leading you out. Anyway, this guy was familiar too. Playing this myself, I had a feeling of depression built up after all of these missions. There was no bright side or power play really. Yes, the one-man army concept remains, but there's no badassery or cool moments in the story the likes of Frank Woods or Harper cracking dumbass cool uncle jokes in Black Ops. The soundtrack arguably peaks as you veer closer and closer to the Parliament building and the goal of planting your country's flag. The music here undoubtedly made me feel that the stakes were at an all-time high, and goddamn obviously they were, but making a player of your video game feel that is a feat to achieve, let me tell you. Of course, in the final mission you make your final power play and make your way to the roof in order to plant your flag. It's been said before, I'll add to the amount of shit and contribute. Why not? The power play one-man army concept introduced mainly in COD 4 is plain and obvious to see here. Compared to COD 1 where you plant the flag as a unit. Jesus Christ, World at War is so much better, isn't it? COD was never meant to be taken as a historical account of war. You have documentaries, official articles, and sources for that. It was always meant to be entertaining, and while the concept of a one-man army has been done time and time again, it's arguably done well here, at the very least. World at War, though, shows the brutality of war in a better way than any of the other games ever did. And I think that, coupled with the fact that many people became interested in history and what actually happened in real life due to playing this game, makes it forgivable. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is therefore my judgment that this game is hereby forgiven for its sins, because I became interested in World War II solely because of this game, and I'm proud of it. Not really actually, but I like to think that at least one of you watching here has never played World at War before, and so that lovely person goes on to play the game themselves and makes a treacherous journey of driving the flag into the heart of the Reich. And as this person plants the flag and gets the climax to their long, troublesome journey, they meet with a terrible fate, don't they? Now, years and years ago, in a land far away, in an age long ago, the fifth entry in the Call of Duty franchise was being developed. One mythical legend, that of Jesse Snyder, undertook the impossible. While trying to come up for bonus I'm not gonna do this. While trying to come up for bonus content for World at War, the likes of Mile High Club from the preceding entry, Snyder and one Jason McCord kicked around for ideas, and eventually, water sprung up. A game mode in which you'd play as a German mowing down the Allies in Normandy from a bunker which you couldn't leave. And as this game mode finishes, an explosion would rip through the bunker, and an American soldier caps your ass, for the lack of better terminology. Now, there was some resistance against playing as a German, of course, even if he gets capped by an American at the end. Although regardless, Snyder thought to himself, this really ain't cheap. One day, while adding some AI functionality to the second mission of World at War, the team noticed how after a strike on the Japanese defensive line, the Japanese soldiers looked to be dazed, so much so that they looked like zombies. Now, this peculiar incident cycled through Snyder's mind of absolute genius, and it sat there, fermenting for months, until one day, Snyder went to producer Dan Bunting with a built-up hate of Call of Duty's invincible one-man army shtick. He mentioned tower defense games, a genre of games in which you defend an area from bad guys coming in with the help of points and abilities you acquire through playing the game, of course, progressing through the rounds in hopes of setting a high score. A couple hours hours later, Snyder mentions this once more to designer Sean Slayback, and Slayback mentions this little flash game called The Last Stand, which is practically just a tower defense game based around zombies. Oh my god, I got it! Zombie Nazis! What if I could buy barricades in real time, along with weapons and doors to new areas, all in real time first person? Plus, I could play in co-op. I already have zombie animations of the dazed Japanese soldiers from that one mission. I mean, this is a no-brainer. So, what do you think, Dan? There's not enough time. What? It's risky. We need to acquire too many new assets. What you need to acquire is some bitches. Now, our producer Dan Bunting wasn't quite sold on the idea. The guys in the office were. One day, though, Dan grabs help to develop his concept of what a tower defense game should be. He dubs it bunker defense, in which you run through levels that have guys spawning in waves, that eventually you encounter this guy with a flamethrower with some dogs. But to Snyder, this was simply whack as fuck, because for one, you need to be able to buy stuff, be able to rebuild defenses, change strategies, shit like that, but most of all, you need to be able to defend. Weeks would go on, more and more work goes into this bunker defense minigame, and week after week, Snyder would say, we should drop this into zombie Nazis instead, guys, shut the fuck. Now this tickled his nuts funny, because after a while, he decided he'd had enough and went to prototype zombie Nazis himself over a weekend of his. So what I've been to do is I would take this creepy ass ability for the campaign for free. I would put some boards all over it and turn the contrast up a bit, and voila, bon appétit, à quoi voyons, rien d'impossible. Now all the core elements were there. He implemented areas that you could buy. He used the day's soldier animations to implement these enemies that melee through the boards to invade the building. He implemented weapons on the walls that you could buy to get to higher rounds. The whole shebang, ladies and gentlemen. So the prototype is rough, but what do you guys think? And so people spontaneously jizz all over the place. Dan, however, wanted his stinky pee-pee poo-poo bunker defense game to be worked on as well, but after about a week or so, it ended up being axed as it just didn't work out. Thank fucking god. Now in a classic Activision moment, they tell Snyder and Austin, the only guy mainly working on the bunker defense game, to work on the zombies prototype in their own free time over the weekends. The motivation was just too strong, and so they did just that. After polishing the prototype up a bit more, their lead animator at the time, Jimmy Zielinski. Yes, fucking Jimmy Zielinski himself, believe it or not, plays through it and grows a strong love for it. If you guys need any animations for this, just let me know. If you need any money, any resources, if you need someone to disappear, just give me a call, okay? The crazy thing here is that by chance, they had a mocap session coming up soon too, and one of the actors there had experience playing a zombie at a theme park, so they pretty much just got the best possible actor to make the best possible animations for their prototype. Over time, many members of the team contribute to the prototype by making the zombies look the iconic way they currently do, with their glowing eyes and SS honor guard outfits, and setting up a gibbing system so that you could blow entire limbs off of the zombies. By the way, you know that thing when the zombie has its head blown off but keeps attacking you? Yeah, that shit was a bug that they thought was awesome, so they kept it and modified it so that it only attacks you for a couple seconds. Though even with how good the prototype had now become, it was still too unbalanced. The first round, for example, would last for 30 zombies and it'd be just too slow. And if you've ever played Knocked, man, it seems like they ain't never fixed that shit for real. Now in a classic Activision moment, the crunch over at the office over the main game got so bad that they just couldn't work on zombies anymore. And thus, the dream of the Impossible Zombies game was started to fade away. That is, until Activision did the only legitimately good thing they've ever done to this day. They enlisted someone, Mike Denny, lead scripter, to work full-time on Nazi zombies. Now the official name for the project. This man, Mike Denny, gave a whole new meaning to rejuvenation with what he did for the prototype. Shit was so good, it was rejuvenating. He polished everything up so good. One example would be how before, when you buy a door, it just straight up no-clipped out of existence into the backrooms, but now it disappeared with tact, with etiquette. See that FX lightning shit, bro? Like, shit. Jamie Zielinski and fellow animator Philip Lozano played the hell out of it day in, day out, doing balancing on the fly. They wanted to make it so that by round 10, it would start to get noticeably hard, and by round 20, if you make one mistake, you die. Now with mere weeks left on the calendar, Snyder thought that there was still something missing. Oh my god, power-ups!
Fuck no, baby!
The initial resistance he'd gotten was because the team was in love with the survival horror aspect of zombies, and that by adding power-ups it'd take away from that aspect. But Snyder decided that zombies wasn't meant to be taken that seriously to begin with, that it was always meant to be an arcadey side fun game mode, and so he went ahead and implemented the power-ups anyway. And of course, before you knew it, you'd hear all around the office, "Get the double points, get the max ammo, bitch, shut the fuck up, let me win my first." And that, to Snyder, was the very essence of zombies and what he wanted it to end up being. And as icing on top, weapon artist Max Porter one day had a built-up frustration of the same tacky old World War II weapons in the mystery box, and so he went ahead and modeled the little thing now known as a ray gun. And of course, that too blew up in the office, and you had everyone making animations, sounds, and effects for it to put it into the main game. With just days left on the calendar, the team is focused on fixing bugs and exploits and just polishing it up as much as they humanly could. And eventually, the game ships. November 11, 2008, you'd boot the game up for the first time, and after getting severely traumatized by the main menu theme, you'd notice that there is no zombies game mode. But here's the thing. You wouldn't even know that there's a zombies game mode, my boy, because they never advertised it to begin with. See, coming back to that example of one of the people who watched my videos deciding to get up and play the World at War campaign himself, they'd meet with a terrible fate. Why? Because as the team decided that when you plant the Soviet flag and beat the game, that's when you get to experience their silly little game mode. Now, enter Nocturne Tone at a time when the zombies community was infantile at best. If you're a modern player, man, the shit people did to survive back then, like, there will be visible concern on your face, I bet, because look, I always credit the training methods we now use to syndicate, yeah, back around 2010 to 2011, but of course there will be someone who trained zombies back in Noct. After all, running in circles with zombies after you is a natural and efficient way to reach high rounds, as it conserves a ton of ammo and nets you the most kills. It's just that this method wasn't ever popular or even known of that much. You can credit Syndicate for popularizing it at the very least, because the average Joe who played Noct back in 2008, man, that motherfucker sat in the corner with a ray gun and prayed to his god the beginning of every round. I know, because I was that motherfucker. There was an ever-growing cult around this little game mode, and the people over at Treyarch and Activision took some notice. There was one glaring flaw in this game mode though. In the idea of setting the highest round record and whatnot, it would still get repetitive given enough time. The gameplay loop of spawning in, getting a few kills to open the first door just to gamble with the child support money that you owe your wife and kids. As stale as it sounds on paper, it is absolutely anything but stale if you ever played it yourself, man. Shit's fun, but even then, given enough time, you'll move on. This gameplay loop could use a little bit more pizzazz, and so Treyarch took advantage of the fact that they released map packs as DLCs to support the multiplayer for up to a year, and they added a zombies map to go along with the first one for World at War, namely the second zombies map of all time, Verrucht. Nah, I ain't about to do that shit, bro. The biggest mistake I'd made in this 2-hour video was dragging on and on with the intros to the games. Like, it was okay in the beginning, you know, it lasted just under a minute, but bro, it lasts 4 minutes by the end, 5 even. Now, of course, if it isn't obvious already, there will be something new, something quirky in this map, noticeable immediately after spawning in. Vending machines. Ooh, I'll wonder what I'll get for $1. Some soda, maybe? Who is power and why do I have to turn them on? When it comes to creativity in zombies, it comes from two places, okay? One, it comes from the gameplay, and two, it comes from not the story, but rather the crack cocaine that the writers smoked to make the story. In retrospect, I believe there was a very controversial move made here in Verrucht. The addition of the new perk, Juggernog. Why do I find it controversial? Well, for that we'll have to dive into the concept of difficulty in video games. And of course, the age-old question of, why do developers make their games hard? My guy, I just want to sit down after a long day and not have my anal virginity forcefully taken by a video game. Is that really too much to ask? I don't know. Now I could tiptoe around this 30-second topic for 5 hours in the vein of Mr. Doc JD. But fortunately, I have the one-sentence long answer that you seek. The point of a game being hard is simply to keep players hooked and constantly striving for more, and to keep them in a cycle of, I defeat hard boss, brain feel happy. Understand this, the feeling of overcoming a difficult challenge is primal. We're fucking with evolution here, and I think everyone watching this video has had their own difficult boss or level that after trying and trying as hard as they humanly could, they eventually beat. There are two caveats that come with this though. One, not everyone has the same skill set and tolerance of set difficulty, and two, not everyone has the time to deal with that bullshit for real. Something easy for me might be hard for another, and vice versa of course, but this problem has the obvious solution of get good, and as dismissive as this advice is, the point is that after trying your best over and over again, you're bound to improve. The problem rooted in this though is motivation and of course time. You're not gonna be young forever, and unless you're privileged enough to have a work routine in your life that's not too demanding, putting tens of hundreds of painstaking hours into a game just to meagerly improve and have fun is just asking too much for some people. Unless of course they're masochists and have fun in having their anal virginity forcefully taken away from them. But Nacht is meant to be difficult, but not to that degree. Coming back, I find Juggernog, a perk that allows you to take 5 hits before dying as opposed to 2, to be controversial for a number of reasons. Round 20 without Jug is impressive, especially in Nacht, but after Jug was introduced, I'd wager that round 20 became the bare minimum expected from you. It's more evident in the later games where after round 30, the difficulty literally just plateaus and just goes out the fucking window, with the game becoming more about how long you can endure the very difficult task of running around in a circle. 10 hours? 15-bit check with the game after 1, my guy. It's worth adding that Juggernaut was simply built different in the original Verrucht because of how much it quickened your regen speed. So much so that the last zombie can't even kill you. But regardless, the reaction from the masses wasn't backlash, wasn't criticism either, but rather acceptance. People simply loved it, and you could argue that it was needed in type maps like Nacht and Verrucht, but were they right to keep it the same going forward? With how the modern games are, I wouldn't say so, but it does become a matter of preference, of course. The gameplay loop had changed after the addition of perk colas. Juggernog would increase your health, Speed Cola would quicken your reload speed, Double Tap would increase your fire rate. I think everyone knows how I feel about that. Literally a waste of ammo, do not ever get this perk. And of course, Quick Revive. Now, the last time I brought the perks in World at War up, I mistakenly said that while it only made your revive speed in co-op faster, it gave you 3 extra lives in solo. My mistake was being a privileged Black Ops 1 baby bitch, because this 3 extra lives feature was never even a thing in World at War, but rather Black Ops. So when you think about it, 2 out of 4 perks would be completely useless in solo. Yes, I consider Double Tap to be useless. I demand a minimum 4-paragraph essay in the comments detailing how it's useful to the player if I were to be convinced otherwise, because there's just no way in hell nor heaven that this perk can be thought of as useful. Like, good joke, bro. You applying for the circus too, goddamn? The cult of zombies kept becoming bigger and bigger, and Treyarch responded with 2 more DLC maps. The gameplay loop changed significantly, of course, with 2 main things. The Pack-a-Punch of the last map, which I will just choose not to explain, and instead just let your imagination guess what it does by showing you this little scientific diagram, of course. And in the third map, the docks, which pretty much just serve as a way to guarantee you max ammo every 5 to 6 rounds. Now, the formula that had been created following the last DLC map, Dereese, that shit served as the backbone for COD Zombies going forward. I, of course, choose to ignore Vanguard, as do the rest of you, I imagine. The funny thing is, all of these DLC maps were rehashed versions of maps either from the campaign or the multiplayer of this game. Verrucht is a combination of Ring of Steel from the campaign and Asylum from the multiplayer. Shinanuma, a combination of Knee Deep from the multiplayer and Exemplify from the campaign. Hey, wait, this guy looks kind of familiar. And of course, Dereese, a combination of Eviction from the campaign and Night to Fire from the multiplayer. They look and play extremely similar. In fact, they look so similar that my cat literally wouldn't notice the difference. It's kind of funny how with such low budget, the Zombies team made rehashed maps like Nacht and Dereese so iconic that they practically appeared in every single Zombies iteration going forward. But enough about the dumb shit, let's talk about the story. The even dumber shit. Playing World at War Zombies for the first time, at a certain point, your imagination will take the reins and you'll begin to wonder shit like, what is this place? Who am I? Why am I fighting zombies? Of course, with nothing there to see surface level, you'll move on after getting no answers to any of your questions. Your mind will fill in the gaps with its imagination, and a certain fear of the unknown will develop. A huge reason for many people feeling unnerved and even scared by playing creepy ass maps like Verrucht. But you didn't think the Zombies team was content with just giving you a fun game with no explanations in it, huh? Look, I don't know who it was, I'ma be honest. Jimmy Zielinski, Craig Houston, Hidetaka Miyazaki, was it you? God damn. Now, the MO that they chose to present the lore was very interesting. They looked at the game mode's secrecy-oriented approach regarding how one even finds out about it, and they said to themselves, balls out, let's go ass first into this. Because when I tell you that the only way to know what's happening in the story is to listen to these hidden radios, and yeah, that's it. Like, you know that's the team trying to be quirky and shit. Like, they're the weird kid in class wearing the goth clothing and shit. They're just like me, for real. Let's get one thing straight, okay? If I had never played Zombies and you had told me that this game and this game are part of the same series, only years apart from each other, I'd call you a schizo, okay? But logical reasoning be damned, this game would clearly blew the fuck up for them to conjure a budget like that out from the abyss of Bobby Kotick's darkened asshole, for real. If I were to look at this in a different way, the radios with their audio snippets are somewhat more effective than the blitz and glamour this series later shows, and I believe it's partly due to imagination. Hearing the audio snippets of Richtofen locking Maxis and his daughter away in the teleporter to kill him, like, your imagination plays a big part in visualizing it, and the immersion therefore increases exponentially. Compared to pre-rendered cutscenes from the later games though, that imagination takes a distant backseat, so you can understand how that affects immersion, of course. The zombies team really is that quirky kid in class, and really it's evident in the fact that every map has its own little song. Hold F on this toilet 3 times and your ears get blessed with one of the best video game songs of all time. Hold F on this telephone, and after a very wholesome message from the lady notifying me of how she knows not only when I'm sleeping but quite possibly my home address as well.
Rub mustard on my what?
Your ears get blessed with one of the best video game songs of all time. Hold F on these 3 jars that have brains in them. Your ears get blessed with one of the best. See, that's the thing. I may be extremely biased and shit, but I'll be damned if they didn't go the extra mile for little things like this. The Zombie soundtrack is actually my comfort music. Shit takes me back, and what you've just heard is a telltale sign of nostalgic bias. Please contact medical authorities immediately if you see someone behaving with those symptoms like an utter donkey. I believe the creativity in the zombie story really shows itself in the later Black Ops games, especially the first one. So as to not drag this chapter on for 3 more hours, let's take the smart approach, okay? I'ma put this World at War shit right down the fuck out of here for real. And so Modern Warfare 2 is interesting in that, bitch, I got you, didn't I? Didn't I? I know shit my biased ass will put this game all the way up in the wood smash tier. God damn, man, as if the length of this chapter didn't clearly spell it out for you. Modern Warfare 2 takes the first title in its trilogy and adds just a little bit of Hollywood flair to it. And by a little bit, I mean a very, very large fucking amount. Never would I have thought that single-handedly gunning down an entire favela would ever have been something I'd be doing in this franchise. I think the grammar's off a bit there. Until, of course, I did exactly that. But let's back up just 1 mission prior. You know where I'm going with this. In hindsight, it seems that the devs thought that including at least 1 major controversial scene per game was something absolutely necessary to generate buzz. With how infamous these scenes are, I'd say mission accomplished and give the team a pat on their backs. There's a lot to unpack with this game. I mean, yes, we did just stop nukes from detonating in the US in the first game, but in this game, oh boy. Remember Makarov? Oh, well, he's got a bone to pick with the US, as one might have inferred from his highly original one-of-a-kind manifesto 1 game prior. Private Allen was a soldier handpicked by the CIA themselves, or specifically General Shepard, in order to fuck with Makarov undercover. He gains Makarov's trust, right, but eventually finds himself in a dilemma. And by dilemma, I mean a very big fucking mess, because our boy Makarov here wants to partake in a moderate amount of tomfoolery. And so 1, 2, 3, bing bang boom, and as you're escaping, oh, it seems that Makarov knew all along that you were a filthy American spy. His whole angle here was to commit ungodly amounts of tomfoolery and leaving behind an American soldier as to pin this on the US. Oh, how dare the Americans kill the innocent Russian masses. Best prepare your ass for World War III, bucko. Now what bugs me about this whole shtick is how later on, the Americans used security cameras to CIA zoom on them little bullet bitches and fucking trace where they came from. Brazil. But they couldn't have done the same shit to zoom in on Makarov's face. I mean, my guy was wearing no mask. He had his dick out, balls out even, for the whole world to gaze upon. But now, let's just forget about that. The plot's gotta go on one way or another, bro. The only way I could reason with this is if the Russians knew Makarov and his inner circle did it, but thought the Americans were funding and supporting them or something. But even if, really, I mean, for a game that started out flaunting realism, I mean, I promised myself in the beginning of the video that I won't take these games too seriously, and so I won't. So let's just cut our losses and deal with the fact that we're now at the start of the Russo-American War, or World War III. And it was our boy General Shepard who effectively started. See, Shepard as a person and commander was fine until the infamous nuke went off in the first game. Imagine losing everyone under your command at the snap of a finger. This got under his skin. He hated that the world just fucking watched. He became obsessed, disillusioned. He became infatuated with Makarov. Got the US government to give him his own autonomous special ops unit and everything. He didn't necessarily want to start a war between the two nations. That was spearheaded by Makarov. That boiled Shepard's blood even further. The fact that he was looking more and more like a puppet on strings. He began to get fixated on this idea of becoming a war hero, someone valiant that kids will learn about in classrooms all over. Eventually though, he found himself in his own little dilemma. He had no further practical use for his little task force. He needed to tie up loose ends. To understand the why behind this mission, let's check up with our boy Price. Oh my god, motherfucker launched a nuke heading toward the US. Hey Dimitri, look at all the shit happening down there. Good thing we're up here all safe, huh? What Price did here was he took control of Shepard's little task force and infiltrated a nuclear submarine in hopes of ending the war in a way only God knows. Bang bang boom, and we see him detonate a nuke not in the US but above it, in space, acting as an EMP. Is this scientific? I don't know. This temporarily put a stop to the Russian invasion in DC, a place he just fought in a couple missions prior. Price temporarily paused World War III, and all it took was him brutally blowing up a couple of astronauts of his own accord. Shepard, of course, took notice of how unloyal his little task force was. Now, my boy had received intel that Makarov could be in one of two locations, so he sends Price and Co to one, and heads to the other with his best boys Ghost and Roach down to Makarov's estate. They of course don't fight him there, but they do find his computer, and so they jump at the opportunity to copy Makarov's nighttime browsing history. Now, here's the thing with that though, Shepard knew that whatever info they got from his computer not only covered stuff on Makarov, but on himself as well. Info that detailed just how he planted CIA agent Private Allen Makarov's team at the airport and willingly let the massacre happen. He had to tie up some loose ends, and that's precisely what he did at the end of this mission. Though of course he still has one more loose end left to tie up, namely Price and Co. Over at the other location, Price finds himself in a three-way battle between themselves, Makarov's inner circle and Shepard's brand new shadow company. And so what Price does is that he works over a deal with Makarov for Shepard's location, citing the age-old principle of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And so bang bang boom, you go there, and after he delivers his villain monologue, you cross-map tomahawk his ass. And I warned you bro, any sense of realism in this trilogy headed out the fucking window with this game, and that's perfectly fine because this shit is simply fun. Everything that I've just told you had me hooked by the balls in ways MW1 couldn't even dream of. It stands to reason that there's a huge lapse in the difference between me starting MW1 7 times being bored out of my fucking mind versus me playing MW2 just once and immediately getting hooked beyond belief. I love this game, and it has its flaws for sure. It's no world at war, but as long as your suspension of disbelief is pumped up to a safe level, I think you'll enjoy this game just fine. Fine enough to lead the would kiss category, I would say. In early April of 2010, these mysterious flash drives were being sent to gaming journalists serving sites like IGN and Kotaku. These thumb drives held a single audio file and a text file with the following words: cryptography, isotope, philanthropy, hydrogen, ember, rebirth. When you take the acronym of these words, it spells out cipher. Now in the audio file you would hear a man saying,
"What we wish, we readily believe, that what we ourselves think, we imagine others think also."
Followed by a woman listing out what seems to be a code. This quote in question is one of Julius Caesar's. Now let's take this at face value, okay? The text file tells us to do something with a cipher. The quote in the audio file is one of Julius Caesar's. This suggested to use the Caesar's cipher on the code given by the woman, an encryption method which involves shifting each letter to an nth position after the original, with n of course being unique to each text. In the audio file there were conveniently 3 chimes which indicated that every letter had been shifted 3 times for its encryption. Shifting each letter in the code back 3 times gives us a URL, gknova6.com. Visiting the site, another audio file with a length of 1 minute and 15 seconds ends up playing with yet another quote, this time from Francis Bacon. Using the Baconian cipher, a cipher in which each letter of a plain text will be replaced by a group of 5 of the letters A or B, it was found that the site will update in the 2nd week of April. Time went on, more and more transmissions would be broadcasted, each with its own unique cipher. Footage JFK would play, references to Nova Nova 6 would be made. After the final transmission, a final cipher would entail in decoding a complex password. It took some time, but once decoded, a cinematic would play, showcasing a somewhat familiar scene. Of course, no one knew what this whole charade was about. They just received an anonymous USB after all. That is, until the world premiere of Black Ops 1 dropped, containing references to the GK Nova 6 site, confirming that this alternate reality game was to do with the latest Call of Duty of all things. Eventually, of course, the website changed to an orange hue, placing us in a very familiar scene this time around. When you think about Call of Duty as a franchise, it really is the fast food of the gaming industry. Black Ops 1 though doesn't deserve to be bundled up with the rest of these cookie cutter ass bitches, let me tell you. When the fucking main menu of this game is among the most creative, if not the single most creative main menu of any game you've seen yet, it's safe to say you're in for a ride. Just as with World at War, Black Ops 1's biggest strength is its thematic prowess. From its music to its visual style, barely any games in this franchise creatively match it. There's this insistence from the devs of getting right to the fucking point from the second you click the start button. Locked up in this chair, you can see the lifeless room in which you're locked up, and with these old ass TVs around you playing back historical footage, immediately your curiosity is piqued. Whether you feel unnerved, taken aback, whatever, your reaction can be boiled down to a simple, the fuck is all this then? And that reaction's reasonable, but rest assured all your questions can and will be answered so long as you simply click new game.
What's your name?
Fuck you!
Where were you born?
Kiss my ass!
And so we discovered that our main protagonist, Mr. Fuck You, hailing from the country of Kiss My Ass, of course, is in quite the dilemma. He's cornered and finds himself being interrogated for answers that he simply does not have. Whether it's the meaning behind these random ass numbers or motives of these random ass people, Mason just doesn't understand. You, the player, of course, can chalk it up to Alzheimer's, but let me tell you something about Treyarch, okay? It is their lives mission to go against the idea of Occam's razor, okay? So now we got a lot of questions ourselves, the most glaring of which being, who exactly is this sus interrogator? In a series of flashbacks, you discover a number of things, like that one Tuesday you and your special ops unit casually set out to assassinate Castro, as if the 600 other attempts came close, and you succeeded, but aha, you fool, that was only a secret innocent twin that you just shot. And as a consequence, you got thrown into the gulag, but it's okay because for some reason, Victor Reznov is back, you sons of respectable women. Now at this point, it's established that most of this game will revolve around you, Alex Mason, narrating and playing through these flashbacks in order to understand just what the fuck is happening. And so it is through your narration that we discovered that Reznov took a keen interest in your ass and considered you his right-hand man, so much so that he sparked an entire prison uprising just to get you out. And so you do get out, and as you're climbing on the escape train expecting Reznov to follow you, he of course pulls the ultimate game move and just doesn't, in an effort to distract the guards to guarantee your safety, ultimately getting recaptured. Not long later, of course, you're casually summoned to the Pentagon to meet your CIA contractor Jason Hudson, and it's at this point you realize you're a schizo. I am so sorry that your pet rock died, but step 1, secure the keys. Step 2, ascend from the darkness. Step 3, rain fall. The important thing to know here is how Mason keeps quoting Reznov's steps to freedom, and it's not exactly clear why, but regardless, it is clear we seem to be progressing through to the final step of his escape plan. Eventually though, you sit down and have a small chat with the president, detailing your entire mission and ultimately this game's whole premise and end goal, which is to prevent a bioweapon from being unleashed upon the US. And to do that, you'll have to eliminate a certain person.
Dragovich.
With intel suggesting he's holed up at this one rocket base, you head there, and you thought I was just gonna not discuss what just happened. Oh fucking, you know what? That's some Chad shit right there, bro. I showed that clip to a person who's never played Black Ops before, and I literally refused to elaborate. Now, a lot of shit happens in this game, but it's ultimately you as Mason retracing your goose chase of Dragovich and his two goons, Kravchenko and Steiner. Hell, at one point you catch his limo escaping from a facility and burn it, with then Woods presuming Dragovich is as good as, quote, a charcoal briquette, end quote. It's believed that he still lives though, as they literally did not confirm the kill. Now this all took place in November 17 of 1963, mind you. The very next mission in Vietnam though takes place in 1968.
Butch, you look like having shit.
There's a very obvious gap in Mason's memory, but anyway, you discover a lot about the bioweapon Nova 6 and the scientists devoted to it. You keep being interrogated in what can be inferred as a present, though prompted with more and more flashbacks. Mason is growing more and more frustrated as the mysterious interrogator seems to already know all about what happened in these flashbacks you played through. How else could he give precise dates and backgrounds on the missions you went on to jog your memory and accurately call you out on your lies? It can be inferred at this point that your mysterious interrogator interrogator is Giga Chad himself, as he's just doing all this to fuck with you. There's no other way. At one point, you go over your obsession with Dragovich, Kravchenko, and Steiner and why all these men must die. If you didn't get the memo, you as Mason are completely obsessed with these men. That sounds wrong, but it just so turns out that Reznov told you all about just who these men are. Playing as Reznov at the end of World War II, you realize the reality of Dragovich and Kravchenko, commanding you and your comrades to retrieve the Nazi scientist Steiner in hopes of working on a weapon with him. Failure to go through with this mission, of course, will have your ass capped, for the lack of better terminology once more. Petrenko, the guy you play as in most of World at War, asks Reznov about what happened between him and Dragovich. And so we learned about what happened that one fateful day detailed in the World at War mission Vendetta. You see, during the Battle of Stalingrad, Reznov was assigned as a sniper to eliminate Heinrich Amsel, as we know, but during the battle, he asked Nikita Dragovich for reinforcements. Reinforcements which were then promised, but which ultimately never came. It resulted in the massacre over at Stalingrad, from which we pick up in the mission Vendetta. In the flashback, Reznov apprehends Steiner and takes him back to Dragovich and is surprised to find out that they're actually old friends. It's at this point that Dragovich pulls the ultimate gamer move and proceeds to tie up any loose ends. And so after you retrieve the DSM, Dragovich takes Reznov and his comrades to a nearby ship and locks them up in a chamber to observe the effects of Nova 6 firsthand. Petrenko, in the words of Reznov, should have valiantly died a hero's death in Berlin, but he died for nothing. Like an animal. Reznov tries to escape but is ultimately recaptured and sent to the Gulag, where he meets Mason. In the campaign, you eventually have Dr. Steiner, the guy we were just discussing, defect due to the harsh reality of Dragovich burying everything and everyone linked to the Nova 6 project, and so he debriefs you on what exactly the numbers are. Apparently, in a matter of hours across America, many sleeper agents are just waiting to release the deadly bioweapon Nova 6, and the numbers serve to activate these sleeper agents after they're broadcasted from a number station. See, the concept of sleeper agents all revolve around real-life brainwashing programs, most of which have been carried out by the CIA, dare I mention. Let's say I take a vulnerable man and I abuse him and I program him to do something that I want at an unspecified point in the future. Whether it's outright killing someone or screaming the word sex while chasing down a family of 4 in a crossover, it really doesn't matter. For him to do what I want at an unspecified point in the future, it would need an activation, because how else would he know, right? Let's say I peg the word Among Us as the activation key. Whenever he hears the word Among Us, that's when he falls through the instructions that I told him to carry out. That is exactly the type of shit real-life CIA programs like MK Ultra are all about. At the height of the Red Scare, the US government wanted to make sure that the nation stayed good and, well, capitalist. The newly created CIA was tasked with exactly that. A lot of research then went into mind control or brainwashing, among them the possibility of whether a person could be turned into a double agent without them even knowing. The idea, of course, pegged as a way to not only identify spies in the mainland, but to create spies for the US and the Soviet Union. People born as Soviets but unknowingly working for the US. The methods that they used as forms of quote-unquote research are unquestionably unethical and outright illegal, with shit like dosing unwilling and unaware subjects with hallucinogenics, forcing them into unnatural social situations, and just flat-out torture. It is even believed that in one such case, a researcher and psychologist took part in the program and carried out an experiment. He had this group of Harvard students write long essays all about their hopes, dreams, and aspirations and whatnot, only for this drill instructor to come in and tear apart their papers, picking upon each and every single line that they wrote, berating them for how stupid they are. One of the students who broke ended up being Ted Kaczynski, and we all know what happened with him. You can reasonably say that the CIA believed they were lagging behind the Soviets when it came to interrogation, and for whatever reason thought the Soviets were doing similar shit in the Gulag. Black Ops 1 revolves around this, with the whole number station thing pegged as the Soviets' attempt at MK Ultra. I dislike how they pulled a Russia bad move here again. Bitches be like, Russia wants to brainwash Americans. My brother in Christ, you made MK Ultra. But I suppose somehow you can take it as a critique to both parties. Coming back, of course, the only one who can stop the sleeper agents from deploying the Nova 6 turns out to be Steiner himself. Eventually, you get to confront Kravchenko, or rather Woods does, in an epic one-on-one battle the likes of which MGS Rising Revengeance could only ever dream of coming up with, and it's after this that you, Mason, go rogue. As the only member of your Black Ops unit alive, you go after Steiner with Reznov accompanying you. Upon finally confronting him, Reznov beats him up and finally as his revenge. The interrogator didn't like that you went rogue, of course. He asked why Mason vented Steiner when CIA agents Hudson and Co. were heading there themselves anyway after what happened with Steiner defecting. After Reznov capped Steiner's ass, it's at this point in the mission where you go 20 minutes back in time, this time playing as Hudson, making his way to where you just were as Mason. But upon getting there, you start to get a hint of some fuck shit. Mason turned out to be not only schizo, but a person with identity disorder. Roll credits. Nah, but this begs the obvious question, just where the fuck is Reznov? You come back to the interrogation room and it's revealed that the sussy Among Us interrogator was your CIA contractor Hudson all along. In a grand revelation, you learn a myriad of things, like how over at the Gulag, you were implanted with the knowledge to translate the number sequences and brainwashed to attempt an assassination of President Kennedy himself, but that Steiner found you to be special in that you were resilient. Or like how Reznov was counter-brainwashing you with the objective of taking down Dragovich, Kravchenko, and Steiner instead, dying and breaking you, his murder machine, out of prison. This, in a plot twist, confirms that Mason was schizo all along. The truth is, Reznov was never real to begin with. Mason remembers the first time he was captured and conveniently remembers Dragovich mentioning the ship beside him, Vasalka, being the infamous one and only number station Hudson nearly gave up on finding. Heading there with barely any time left on the clock, you destroy the number station and finally confront Dragovich. Very enthralling, I tell you. Mission complete, Dragovich is down, Nova 6 is stopped. That's a fuck yeah for America. Or is it? In the very final cutscene of the game, you're left with this historical footage of Kennedy walking around the day of his assassination. Amidst the crowd stood, who's that? Let me get a clear shot. Oh, that's Mason. Weird, what does that even mean? That's kind of boring. I just got done beating Dragovich up after my whole frustration with him trying to make me kill my own president. And all he had to say was some emphasis on the word tried for some reason. Now as a kid, I fucking swear to you, I probably played through this campaign about 10 to 15 times, but I always played for the shooty shoot the bad guy aspect, I'm gonna be honest. Eventually, my donkey ass grew a brain and realized that, hey, there's actually some pretty cool shit here that I completely skipped. In real life, there are many theories surrounding the assassination of President Kennedy. The biggest theory being that there was a second shooter besides Lee Harvey Oswald. Well, actually, the biggest theory is that the CIA orchestrated all of this themselves, but for the safety of me and my family, we really don't talk about that. Now, I'm not saying that these theories are valid, of course, but they were based on a number of irregularities, like how the place from which he shot his rifle didn't really line up with the bullet's trajectory, or that there were multiple shots that were fired way too fast for a bolt-action rifle, or the sheer absurdity of the bullet entering Kennedy's back and exiting through his throat. But I think what puzzled the masses more than anything was the infamous question, what the fuck was the motive? McKinley was assassinated by an anarchist, Lincoln by a proud Confederate, but what about Oswald? It's not to say he was a regular Joe, but his motive remains unclear to this day. Attention? We may never know, as the assassin himself was assassinated. All of these irregularities fed the conspiracy that, okay, there was a second shooter there besides Oswald. Someone whose motive may fit. Someone who's more responsible. Black Ops 1 takes this theory and dubs brainwashed Alex Mason as the infamous second shooter. A revelation that you don't actually have to play the whole game for. See, Black Ops excels in subtle foreshadowing as well. When you point that gun toward Kennedy, you can see footage of Kennedy playing behind him. Footage taken the day he was executed. And in one of the missions that has you mentally breaking down, you say shit like this. It's chilling to think that Mason was working with Oswald as sleeper agents in a mission to take JFK down, and that Mason was the shooter who simply never got caught. Remember the 5-year gap in Mason's memory when he was being interrogated? Right before that gap, the last mission you take part in takes place on the 17th of November, just 5 days before the infamous event. Black Ops 1 is packed with these little quirks and features. You know, shit like the code word designates given to you at the beginning of the game spelling out Reznov is dead when you take their acronym, or the fact that if you throw flashbangs around friendly NPCs, they react, but Reznov never does, as he's not real. Shooting friendlies gives you a mission fail screen. Shooting Reznov never does. I respect the first Black Ops because it's not afraid to take risks. It's bold and it punches above its weight. It took what World at War did right and dramatized it, and that's a good thing, at least in this specific case. This game excels at selling its atmosphere. Its tense, mysterious atmosphere which constantly has you second guessing at every corner. It stands out as one of the all-time best Call of Duty campaigns for that reason. Not only is it fun, but it offers quirks that you just never expect from a game in this franchise, if I'm being honest. In fact, one specific quirk of World at War shows itself again here. After you finish the campaign and watch the revelation of JFK's assassination unfold, you spawn in this office. Oh, zombies, we're doing that one again, eh? Now, me and my homies don't talk about fire. Like, I appreciate that you can play as President Kennedy working alongside Castro to kill undead zombies. I sincerely wonder how much crack cocaine it took to come out with that one, but chic, you know, the toes where it's actually at, let me tell you. There's something haunting behind this map. Everyone I've bullied into playing this map all reported a sense of unease, a feeling of I shouldn't be here. Interestingly enough, the feeling is local to the original Kino and is completely missing from its remaster for Black Ops 3. You see, the team knew how to do horror right back then. Subtle things like writings on the wall, with one writing in the spawn room advising you, beware of the 6, foreshadowing the hounds from hell that come on round 6. This in particular got me in my childhood. The first couple of times I played zombies alone, I'd make a mental note of this round, and I'm not afraid to admit I was fucking terrified. What would happen is that I would load up a solo game of zombies in Kino, feeling utterly terrified right from the main menu. I would go through maybe 2 or 3 rounds and then I'd simply quit the game, not being able to handle it. One time, however, I decided I'd make it to the dogs round. That it was all or nothing. I progressed through the map and I turned the power on, with the screams of the Nova Crawlers realizing the horrors of this map once more. I had this urge within me. God, I want to quit. I don't want to do this. You see, I was flat out panicking. But I held on. I made it this far, I have to see to the end. And so, not long after, Samantha's inevitable call rings out. Fetch me their souls. I camp in a corner in the stage like a little bitch, shooting every hound that comes at me with my newly bought M16. 1, 2, 3, 4. Eventually I get all of them and a max ammo drop serves to be my prize. Delighted and relieved, I think to myself, I fucking did it. I survived the dogs round. The next round begins, but having been the hardest and scariest part of zombies, it'll be like a walk in the park, right? Now, of course, if I were to play through Kino now, my reaction to the dogs round will be akin to the live slug reaction, but I do admit from time to time I load the original Kino up and I get the same feelings I used to get all those years ago. What with the ambience and the writings on the wall and whatnot, the depth of this map in particular cannot be overstated. I suck the dicks off the zombies team every single day, but proving the sheer creativity that goes into these maps without diving into the lore is just simply asking too much. Or is it? Upon exploring the derelict theater, you'll come across these posters of some movies that presumably played there, before the undead came to fruition, of course. One natural reaction to these posters, a reaction I'd had myself back then, is, cool way to give this map some personality. With me then immediately forgetting about it not 2 seconds later. God, I laugh about how much in the dark I was about these things, man, I swear. One of the posters spells out the word Pygmalion with this enigmatic woman levitating upward, and of course one will draw the obvious connection to Samantha in the DLC map Moon when she emerges from the MPD. But there's more to it than that. If you search Pygmalion up, it turns out to be a play based around Greek mythology, or specifically around this guy Pygmalion, who was the king of Cyprus and had a hobby for sculpting statues. The basic idea displays that there's this lonely guy, you know, kind of like an outcast who doesn't really have much of any love experience. What I mean to say is that he unironically has no bitches, and so what happens is that he finds himself falling in love with one of the sculptures he'd made of the goddess Aphrodite, essentially just falling in love with an inanimate object. What happens later onward is that he makes prayers which get answered, and the statue comes to life and becomes his wife. Although the obvious but still somewhat vague connection here that can be made to COD Zombies is how the lore Dr. Maxis turns his assistant, whom he loves, into a robot after she'd received a bite from a zombie, thereby infecting her. Now you can call that a wrap at this point, basically believing that's all there is to this poster. Or you could take it one step further, like a donkey. You see, the poster of Pygmalion in Kino closely resembles the poster of the 1927 German silent film Metropolis. Loading the film up, you'll see Kino written and immediately conjure up a galaxy brain, because there's no denying it, guys. Of course, the word Kino merely means the word cinema in German. The word's gonna be there in a German movie, and okay, 1 time is funny, 2 times is fucking saying something, no? Metropolis isn't particularly a Pygmalion style movie, but some resemblance remains in that the figure in the poster is Maria as a robot, created in a lab to resemble the dead wife of the city's ruler, the city in question being Metropolis. Very wealthy city that relies on slavery and manual labor to power this haven of the ultra rich. This guy here practically owns the city, and he exploits the poor and uses them to build his mega city. He's just like me for real. It's a nod to the idea idea the timeless, dejected reality of the rich just using the poor for their own interests. The guy on the left is his son, who's basically trying to get his father to change and basically help the poor. The father, of course, all he knows is wealth and power, so you might as well engage in an argument with a brick wall. Now, the idea that connects to zombies here is how regardless of who you play as, Victus or Ultimus or Primus, you're always serving someone and feeding into their wretched plan. Whether it's Richtofen, Maxis, Dr. Monty, it's always someone. There's tons of imagery in this film as well that I'd say directly inspired Black Ops 2 in particular. Whether it's a transit tunnel here or the buried town the workers go to in order to power the machine, all of it resembling Buried, of course, the connection to COD Zombies is undeniable. At one point, the Tower of Babel gets brought up with how the guy who owns the city towers over it in his, well, tower. The Tower of Babel idea, of course, being biblical in nature, revolving around these guys who wanted to build an insanely tall tower with the sole purpose of reaching God. One could argue that their sole purpose was to become gods themselves by doing this, which is why it leads to God cursing them, toppling the tower and scattering their cultures and beliefs as a punishment. It's religiously believed to be the reason behind why there are multiple languages in this current day and age. Jesse, we need to build the tallest tower the world has ever seen. The Tower of Babel, of course, plays a part in zombies, what with the transit Easter egg and whatnot. I always considered this idea to have been one that simply didn't get expanded upon all that much, until I took a look at Die Rise and considered what they were playing at. You play on skyscrapers, and there's this one skyscraper that towers over you, and of course you could take it to represent the Tower of Babel. But coming back to Metropolis, the leader of the city towers over them as if he's a god, residing in his little tower while the poor work on running the figurative and literal machine. This scene here portrays the machine as a haunting denizen enveloped in fog whose sole purpose is to hurt and devour the poor who keep it running. It really does remind me of something weird. The movie's purpose is to really showcase how the rich and powerful use the downtrodden to do their dirty work for them, and that really does play a lot into the lore and what you as a player do for Richtofen, Maxis, Monty, or whatever. They seemingly planned so far ahead with this one piece of paper, like this one fucking poster in Gino has more thought and passion put into it than the last 3 Call of Duties combined, bro. Like, you load up Vanguard and you get this, like, what is this? Black Ops 1 is the hollow bastion of the zombie saga. It showcases horror and dread topped only by World at War. It is the final stand of simplicity in the series, something which later evolved into the games in which you have to calculate the length of a hypotenuse on a whim without the use of the Pythagorean theorem, just to turn on the power. It ain't Treyarch, sure, but when you do literal fucking chemistry in a zombies map, like, we need to turn back immediately. The first DLC had Ascension serving as a first map to ever have an Easter egg, a move that eventually propelled the story when it comes to popularity. The map itself, of course, is infamous for being a newbie's paradise simply due to how easy it is to survive. Like, they really just gave us a 5 million square foot area of just unobstructed space to train in, huh? Ascension also brought upon more gimmicks. Now, at this point, you had the Pentagon Thief in 5 who replaces the dogs, and instead of trying to hurt you, his sole purpose is just trying to pull a diabolical lick every time he comes. Ascension brought us the monkeys, and funnily enough, their sole purpose is the exact same, but instead of stealing your weapon, they steal your perks. I actually still do not know to this day which doors I should carefully open so that I don't have one perk always stolen from me. Like, is it just me or does Speed Cola always get stolen? Like, what the fuck do I do, bro? I go there and it's too late, and then they steal the quick revive. Oh my god, they stole the fucking quick revive. The team felt extra quirky one day and they brought the father of zombies, George Romero, to serve as a second DLC map called The Dead's boss enemy. They also brought a celebrity cast for the first time, and this map is known for having one of the best Easter eggs of all time. And the egg quest is pretty good when you consider it was only their second attempt at one. You also had Shangri-La, and we don't talk about Shangri-La. And finally, they came up with the final DLC offering 4 remastered World at War maps, as well as a map called Moon. It's funny because the map is called Moon, but when I load it up, I spawn on the Earth. The map's extremely small too. Like, what the fuck is this? It's smaller than Noct, bro. I don't know why they thought this was a proper send-off to a game as prestigious as Black Ops. And of course, anyone who knows me knows I adore this map, particularly for its play at horror. The stark reality of me starting out in this bright and lively little area, and then taking the teleporter to arrive at this dreary, desolate place, opening up to literal nothingness. I swear, this shit gets me every time. Everything about this map's ambience, like, dare I say, it's perfect. They really start you out in daytime Area 51 just to highlight how fucking dead the moon really is when you eventually end up going there. The silence as well, man, the goddamn silence, only disturbed by your rhythmic breathing in accordance with your PES suit. It's something that I believe no other map that came after it ever matched. Weirdly enough, the lack of this map's personality is this map's personality. There's something haunting about the excavators as well, interrupting the silence signifying imminent destruction with that rush you feel at a high round of, oh, I better get my sorry ass back to spawn ASAP, no Rocky. That's not to say this map does not hold any flaws. The biggest flaw that stands out is, unsurprisingly, the RNG rooted deep within the Easter egg. It's cool when you need 1 of the 3 excavators to proceed with the Easter egg. Not so cool anymore when you realize it's round 30 and the excavator in question simply never showed up. It's cool when you need a special grenade to proceed with the Easter egg. Not so cool when you need 2 and you get the second grenade first, but it's useless unless you get the first grenade first, and then of course you sell the first grenade for what you already had before, then to sell that shit again. Fuck that shit, fuck that shit. But with all of my qualms regarding this map, it doesn't discount from this map's gameplay and atmosphere. With that wrapping up the zombies mode to this game, no, I'm not going to mention the secret Dead Ops arcade you access from the terminal. I am so sorry, Rex, but unfortunately, everyone plays this once, says cool, and then never touches it again. Treyarch really went the extra mile with this game, especially with Dead Ops, and I'd give them an easy wood smash right below World at War just for that reason alone. Now, Modern Warfare 3 serves as a practical DLC to Modern Warfare 2. I was a fetus when these games were around, but even I noticed how controversial this third installment was. Not controversial due to scenes like this, but controversial due to the oh so unfortunate fact that good old franchise fatigue was starting to set in. You see, the multiplayer was a literal copy-paste, the campaign felt very out of place as well, and everything can be explained by the fact that all the team members over at IW who gave us all the games we're so fond of literally left the company, bro. Like, my guys headed out for real. They took the money, they took the kids. I find it very funny that the guys who built Call of Duty up for Activision ended up leaving them for their childhood arch nemesis EA. Under EA, they all eventually started up their own little company called Respawn Entertainment and worked on this little game called Titanfall. And all of this was troublesome for Activision, you see. By troublesome, I sincerely mean that it was an extremely big fucking mess, so they brought over Sledgehammer Games and Raven to help develop MW3 alongside what was left of IW. Now, the campaign was still largely spearheaded by IW, but playing it yourself, you'd still notice how out of place this game feels compared to the rest. Again, what was once a grounded shooter aiming for realism had a bit of Hollywood flair added into it for mainstream purposes in the second one. But ladies and gentlemen, I think this scene in MW3 says everything that needs to be said. Bollywood is weeping because of what they couldn't achieve, bro, and I found it hilarious how there are many moments in this game that quite literally belong in a cheesy action movie. Like, MW2 was one thing, bro, but its crazy moments were infrequent. Here, those like, bro, when everything is crazy, nothing is. And again, I'm willing to pump my suspension of disbelief up even higher, because when my dick's in this far, might as well keep going in, bro. Call it sunk cost fallacy, call it whatever. This game picks up exactly where the last game left off, with you cross-mapping general shithead, but the crucial thing that I did not mention was how Shepard actually capped your ass. But because of plot armor, ladies and gentlemen, you're still breathing, and so your friends take you to this place in India to treat you. You see, this game finally revolves around Makarov. You spent the first game largely dealing with Zakayev and co, the second skirting around Makarov and mostly dealing with Shepard. But now's the time you finally deal with the second horseman, Vladimir Makarov. Now, the legacy of Shepard is precisely one he wanted. After his death, he was declared a war hero, and Price and co were dubbed war criminals for their actions. Their little task force was consequently disavowed. This game has you revolving around negotiating peace between Russia and the US, as well as hunting our boy Makarov down. What tomfoolery has Makarov been partaking in this time, you may ask? Oh, just a moderate amount of tomfoolery, a minuscule quantity of trolling. You see, he only kidnapped the Russian president for his nuclear launch codes, so nothing too outrageous. While after a lot of crazy shit in the game, the likes of dealing with Makarov's gamer moves across Europe and toppling the Eiffel Tower down, oh mon dieu, c'est quoi ce bordel? You dive deep, ass first, into a lot of plot twists, okay? First off, you heard me talk about how it was Makarov who detonated the nuke in the first game. That was only revealed in this game in a flashback sequence in which you're playing as Yuri, Makarov's right-hand man and quite possibly a friend with benefits. Eventually, though, Yuri finds himself at the airport where several wholesome events happen to occur, and my guy said, fuck this shit, bro, I don't want to be a tanky no more for real. So he's working with Price and Co now, and he's in a dilemma. If they find out about his history with Makarov, boy, wouldn't that be a mess. But anyway, it's not like they would ever find out. You see, they made their way to a meeting Makarov was holding in an attempt to snipe him, but Turns out that it was all a setup. Soap dies, but he literally has the personality of, fittingly enough, a soap bar. And if anyone crying in the comments wants to at me. I don't see his death as a big deal, okay? Price bullies you for lunch money before accepting that you broke up with Makarov for real this time, and so you two work together and engage in a two-man job. That sounds very wrong. You two decide to help each other out. You team up and start your final mission wearing juggernaut suits, and in a play that makes Bollywood look tame, literally like, what is this? Okay, is this Modern Warfare? How enthralling is that? I like to think of this game as something memorable, but memorability can have its disadvantages, man. I remember this game solely for how over the top it was. You know, it's fun in the beginning, I'll admit, but again, if you make everything crazy, nothing's crazy. That fun grew to boredom faster than I can last in bed, and if you think I'm a Sigma male gigachad who can last hours, boy, I sincerely advise you to reconsider. Overall, this game was like my ass cheeks, fun to play around with for a little while, but market's booming, Ball Delphine's back, so this ain't it, chief. So Black Ops 2 is simply this unicorn in the series. It presents arguably the most creative story in the franchise with one of the best Call of Duty campaigns ever. Creativity isn't everything though, and that's not to say this game fell short with anything, but it definitely would have benefited if it ran longer. If it gave even more backstory to the villain. Oh, the villain. Never had I been so depressed like with Raul's backstory, but before we get to that point, let's backtrack a bit. There was this new Call of Duty coming up on the block, and its whole shtick was, of course, that it was set in the future. There is nothing wrong with experimenting like this, even with the later installments like Infinite Warfare. The masses wrongfully doubled down on sensationalism. Oh, I don't want jetpacks in a Call of Duty this. Oh, I don't want futuristic that. Do you really want the same Call of Duty you've been receiving for the past decade? Regardless, these games sell out as the #1 top game sold each year in, year out, so it's always baffled me beyond belief. Like, what the fuck do you want? Though regardless, Black Ops 2 was a franchise's first try at a futuristic setting, and I'd wager it executed it perfectly. It's set in an age me and you are in right now in 2022, so it holds a certain sense of relatability that no other Call of Duty game does apart from MW. Still, this game comes out having to deliver on a lot of expectations, having to deliver on immeasurable anticipation, and so on November 12, 2012, Black Ops 2 finally releases. Clicking the start button, I immediately felt something familiar. The music. It did something, man. It wasn't haunting like World at War, but it felt heavy, as if it's encapsulating a looming disaster, like something horrible is about to happen. You can thank Trent Reznor of 9 Inch Nails for coming up with that one. It perfectly set the tone for what the game had to offer, and I feel displeased with myself because no matter how I discuss this game, I cannot do it justice, I feel. There are so many plot points that are executed phenomenally. Of course, starting the actual game up will have plot twist #1 of 5,000. That being, Woods is alive and well.
Safety's on, dipshit.
You see that one time he speared Kravchenko off the top of that building like in 1998 when The Undertaker threw Mankind off Hell in a Cell and plummeted 16 feet to announcer stable? It didn't end up killing him. The grenade simply rolled away. You realize a number of things immediately. One being the game kind of lied to you. It wasn't just set in a futuristic era, it's also set in the late 80s. You see, you play as both Alex Mason and his son David, separated only by a couple of decades, drawing the line between classic Call of Duty and futuristic Call of Duty. Woods is, of course, quite old in the newer era, and he seems to recount his experiences with this man, Raul Menendez. You get to relive just what happened in the 80s, playing as Woods when you're not playing as Alex Mason. Let's talk about Menendez, though, for a bit. The Contras, a US-backed rebel group, pillaged, plundered, and worked their way through Nicaragua to dispose of their socialist government, committing innumerable human rights violations all throughout. Enter the terrible situation Raul was in. He had to witness firsthand just what these groups did to his fellow countrymen, his relatives, friends, people he cared about. And yet, in American media, of course, there were still attempts to paint these Contras as heroes. What heroes they were in the eyes of Raul. This, of course, sparked his hatred of the West. But this was just the beginning. In the horrific 1972 Nicaraguan earthquake, it spelled out utter destruction for many livelihoods, completely destroying much of the capital city and displacing hundreds of thousands of people. Raul's entire family lost everything. Their homes, properties, livelihoods, all gone in the blink of an eye. In order to make ends meet, they eventually settled to survive through illegal means by trafficking drugs. Only a year later, a warehouse fire started and ended up crippling Raul's sister Josefina, horribly disfiguring her in the process. Upon discovering her, Raul was prepared to slit his own throat with her pendant right then and there, till he noticed she was awake and breathing. She begged and begged for him not to take such drastic measures, and in the end, He listened, and trudged on to keep his sister and himself alive. Later, he learned that the man who torched the warehouse to begin with was a wealthy American businessman that, in order to gain $11,000, committed insurance fraud. Imagine the reason that your own sister, your flesh and blood, what little remains of your family, has been permanently crippled was for $11,000. This reality, of course, further embittered Raul's relations toward the US. As Raul enters his teenage years, both him and his father propelled themselves deeper and deeper into the criminal underworld, becoming the so-called rich and powerful Legends of Managua. It was during this time he trained to be an escape artist, as per his father's advice. It's predicted that their power would keep growing and growing, something of such concern to the US that the CIA felt it necessary to assassinate Raul's father. In a fit of anger, he sets up the foundation for his own private army, driven by just one thing: vengeance. He dealt with the MPLA, with the Soviets, with Kravchenko himself as he's still alive. And this all took place around the time Alex, Mason, and Hudson were in Angola themselves to rescue one of Raul's victims, Woods. Mason, of course, confronts Raul and shoots him, but merely hits his eye, leaving him permanently disfigured. Time goes on, Raul's power grows and grows, and the CIA, along with the Panamanian Defense Forces, decide to conduct a raid on Raul's compound in Nicaragua. Raul gets ambushed, but ultimately breaks free in search of his sister. As Menendez reaches his sister's room, of course, Frank Woods is there, and in a fit of rage against the devil that held you captive for years, throws a grenade into Raul's sister's room, killing her and seemingly Raul Menendez himself. Years go by, the US invade Panama, and Alex and Woods find themselves smack dab in the middle of it. They're tasked to capture Manuel Noriega, Panama's de facto military president who was dangerously scheming against the government. But upon his capture, Hudson tells you plans changed. We gotta take him to a prisoner swap. And my guy literally refuses to elaborate. Mason goes to a building west of the exchange area, while you, Woods, go with Noriega southward. Woods asks who the prisoner is for the umpteenth time and finally gets his answer.
It's him, Woods. Nexus target is Raul Menendez.
You should have told us, Hudson. You should have told us.
Confirmed visual.
Even if there's people in the CIA.
End this now, Woods. Take the headshot.
It's at this point you realize that Raul Menendez truly has become Heisenberg. You see, that day Josefina was brutally murdered, Raul lived, and unbeknownst to the US, struck a deal with corrupt Noriega, who offered him sanctuary in Panama. Right before the US's invasion of Panama, Raul, with the help of his moles within the CIA, kidnapped Alex's son David, along with Hudson himself. Raul's play was simple yet effective. He forced Hudson to relay false information to Woods, what with the prisoner swap thing, and captured Alex when they split up. He then forces Woods to murder his own best friend in cold blood, before he cripples him by shooting both of his knees. Raul made Woods suffer, just as he did, but it doesn't end there. He murders Hudson to further punish Woods, and makes a vow to young David Mason that when the time comes, he will come back to him, and he will finalize his revenge. Playing the game as grown-up David Mason in the future, you quickly discover he wants to be just like his father was. As for Menendez, we're in quite the dilemma here, and by dilemma I mean a very big fucking mess as usual. You see, Menendez is smart. Over the 30 years that have passed since the whole Noriega charade, he used social media to spark a global uprising of sorts. He created a cult that grew to embrace millions all over the world, Cordis Dia, their motive being portrayed as an organization fighting for the poor, for the impoverished, for the downtrodden. In reality, the so-called messiah of this cult, Raul Menendez, is solely using this group in his play of vengeance against the US for all that they've done to him. The plot in the future is pretty simple, you see. You, playing as David, discover that there's this new Earth element called Celerium that's been discovered, and it has a processing power equaling and even surpassing the processing power of the US's entire military infrastructure. So this is like the Intel 20th Gen K model overclocked, or 5 GHz shit. The only problem? Menendez has it, and he's using it to hack into the drones owned by the US and also China in order to turn them against their own countries. Menendez takes this shit and makes it smaller, way smaller, into a small computer chip, which he then places into a fake eyeball where his right eye once was. Now, Black Ops 2 was marketed as the first non-linear Call of Duty. I mean, they were really pushing the whole multiple ending shtick of this game before it even came out, and the way it all plays out is you get to do side missions that impact the story and the final ending that you'll get. Stuff like if you save Chloe Lynch, the girl hired by Menendez Menendez to make the Celerium worm smaller. If you save her, she'll crack a crucial Celerium-based virus. Canonically, what ends up happening is that at every step of every corner, Menendez is always one step ahead of you. Every infiltration you take part in, every plan that you have, always ends up being engineered by Raul Menendez. I suppose what's more important to the overall theme of this game is the ending, or rather two specific endings. Right at the end, a series of cyber attacks take place around the world. A lot of trolling and sheer tomfoolery indeed. Menendez is taking refuge in this base of his, from where he's controlling the US drone fleet, and as you go there seeking confrontation, you discover that this confrontation was engineered as well. Goddamn, and it shows that Raul was never controlling the drones from the base to begin with. And in a massive power play, on levels something only Giga Chad would do, he self-destructs the drones. But why? In a broadcast to the world mirroring shit that Riddler himself would do, he reveals the true nature of Cortes Diaz's plan. Cripple US drones and leave its military extremely vulnerable, so that the now 2 billion cult followers of Menendez and the idea of Cortes Diaz can rise up and attack the government. He gets what he wishes for, with bloody riots all throughout DC and the White House being burned down. I fucking love arson. Menendez, of course, tries to make an escape from the base, but you intercept him and get the choice of imprisoning him or outright killing him. I usually believe that imprisonment, if done right, is way harsher than a quick death sentence. So my first time playing the game, I had done no side missions, so I opted to capture him instead. He immediately tells David as he's being taken into US custody that he will make his escape in about a year. Remember that Menendez was trained as an escape artist by his father. You see, he engineered this imprisonment as well. His escape plan relies on this Celerium worm, one which only Chloe Lynch can disable. If you don't save her, then of course Raul will eventually escape prison. And one of the most darkest, most bleak endings to any piece of media I've ever seen in my life. Menendez visits Woods and converses with him regarding Josefina and how Woods took her life at shoddy impulse. Just like he killed Hudson 37 years prior, he uses his sister's pendant to kill Woods too. You see Menendez at a graveyard site next, digging up the remains of his sister before dousing himself with gasoline and ultimately taking his own life, just as he wanted to do after the warehouse fire. Now the fucked up thing is that as a kid playing this game, I barely understood English, bro, but I barely understood the concept of storytelling, and I was literally playing this game to shoot some bad guys. And so when this scene ended up playing in my room at 10 AM with the lights off, my reaction was quite literally that of the live slug reaction once again, okay? But even I could tell there was something heavy at play here. I just didn't have the maturity to fully comprehend how fucked up this game really was. But the very next scene showed Avenged Sevenfold playing a song in a surprise Easter egg cutscene. You know, that got my predictable shallow ass excited even back in there. Depending on your choices, you can ultimately have 3 main endings. One which I just went over, one in which he saved Karma and she folds Raul's escape plan by disabling the Celerium worm, cementing his imprisonment, and the canon ending in which he simply cap his ass. The reason I delved so deep into this game and gave a practical summary of what happens is just to drive home the point that this game expands upon everything it brings up. Chekhov's gun shit, we don't fuck with that bullshit. We do that shit right. Black Ops 3, on the other hand, fuck no, baby. I've actually left out so many details and plot points that if you played this game for the first time after I just channeled my inner Morshu and beatboxing Thanos, it'll still be a new and immersive experience for you. Black Ops 2 excels at pacing. It excels at driving a powerful message entailed by emotion. It excels at its theme of just bleakness. World at War and Black Ops 1 already nailed their respective atmospheres, but Black Ops 2 takes it one step further and adds emotion and relatability into the mix. Yes, it's dramatized. No, it isn't necessarily a bad thing, just as how it was for Black Ops 1. Its gameplay element takes it one step further as well, allowing you to create your own classes for every mission, personalizing the game to your needs, making use of anachronism by bringing a weapon from 2025 into the Afghani desert in the late 1980s. I love that shit. But of course, with the campaign nailing everything it possibly can, how's zombies faring? Not good, let me tell you. See, with the premiere of this game in its zombies mode, they pushed this idea of an expanded world in zombies, this grand stage or sandbox that you can dick around in. And I remember when this shit came out, I literally thought this was a campaign mode of zombies or some shit, but nope, no sir, it was actually transit, believe it or not. See, it's somewhat commendable. You had a team that was bold, that was willing to take risks. When it comes to transit, they were simply too ambitious. The map was too big, and it was also their first shake at a map map this size. Every flaw that comes with this map is highlighted for this reason, because when all the effort goes into making the map big, actually making the map play well falls short. First impressions of the map, you're gonna load in and have a hard time navigating. You're introduced to these buildables that are admittedly straightforward. The LG portable fan serves as portable power. The newly introduced shield acts as defense for your plump ass cheeks, and everything else exists as equipment that you can use to help you survive longer by helping you killing zombies and whatnot. Elephant in the room, the fog. Okay, let's not skirt around the obvious feature of this map that tickles every gamer's fat nuts. It's funny when you play a map for 2 hours and the only memorable thing that comes out at the playthrough is this image right here. That's a big no-no, okay? For a game mode that excels at visual imagery and direction, what the fuck is this? But the problem is not the visual direction of this map, but rather how the map plays. It's tedious to go from one area to another. The slow bus does not help. Any hidden areas are near impossible to find due to the fog, meaning that the only way you can discover the cabin with the Bowie knife or the recreation unlocked in this map is either by stumbling upon it by sheer luck or watching a YouTube video showing you how to get there. In order to turn the back punch on, you're gonna want to place a portable fan in this one discrete ass part of the map located in bumfuck Ohio, and then make the journey toward Egypt to this one specific door, which then opens up. God forbid the fan breaks, because then you're gonna have to spend another 15 to 20 minutes engaging in the stimulating and fun task of making your way through the fog back and forth. As for the Easter egg, it's the shortest Easter egg quest made long just due to the map size. The Easter egg steps for quest route 1 of 2 has you just turning the power on, building a table and wonder weapon and killing some zombies, and throwing a special grenade at some specific locations. Yes, my darling, 3 steps is all it takes to complete this map's egg. No, it doesn't take 15 minutes, but rather hours and hours of traversing through the map, doing nothing but fetching items and placing them back and forth, and that's it. It baffles me just how bad this map's design really is. People give it shit for its fog and lava and argue that, oh, you know, if this map were on PS4 or PS5, it'd be perfect. My brother in Christ, the very design and gameplay loop of this map is severely flawed. Of course, critical reception was pretty bad, reasonably so. Bad enough that people have been shitting on this map to this day. In fact, the only reason this game mode didn't go to Belize was because of town. See, the map was so big that they gave you option to play parts of it as if they were standalone maps. You got Farm, which is undoubtedly the best zombies map of all time. Its artistic and visual direction is unmatched in any industry, actually. And you got Town, what everyone played and had fun in. In some way, I expect Treyarch to have realized late in development how flawed Transit ended up being. Otherwise, why the fuck would they give us Town, you know? Yes, the other maps also have standalone areas you can play in, but those came with side game modes within zombies. Game modes like Turned, in which you play as a zombie, or Grief, in which the idea is the namesake, you grief other players, and sabotage them in order to be the last team standing. With how small Transit's Easter egg quest is, bear in mind there are practically 3 steps, the last of which can take 15 seconds to complete, I shit you not, and the first taking around 5 minutes on average. Step 2, building the equipment though, can take hours, especially if you have less than 4 players with you. Hours and hours of just back and forth picking and placing. It's tedious as fuck. If the map were small in size, the Easter egg's shortness would be crystal clear. I mean, you'd be able to complete the quest in the amount of time it takes to do the fly trap quest in Reese, all the way back in World at War. That's foul. But at least you had Town, just a small area with 2 mystery box locations and a pack-a-punch machine. And that was enough to keep the ball rolling, you know? If anything, it proved just how fun the simplicity of zombies can be. The Coming from Moon, a map in which you have a thought-out Easter egg quest, yes, even with its RNG flaws, and a heavy ending. Guys, is this a for real or an on-God situation? It set expectations. It set the foundation for a ton of anticipation. Oh, I wonder what Zombies is gonna do next. It's gonna get even bigger and better. Be careful what you wish for, I suppose. The truly baffling aspect of Black Ops 2 Zombies comes with how it evaded death. I still cannot comprehend it. You'd think after serving up the dog shit on a golden platter that's Transit, they'd at least compensate with the first DLC? No, boy. You would think. Oh boy, how the fuck did this game not die with Die Rise, bro? Jesus Christ. Die Rise shares some similar troubles with Transit in that it's ambitious. The team was willing to experiment and try something new. I mean, shit, I respect that, but delivering criminal maps the likes of Transit and Die Rise one after the other, oh my god. I will argue that Die Rise is 1,000 times better than Transit could have ever been. Its quest plays out decently, and once you get used to the new gameplay element utilized here, verticality, it's not all too bad. That's most of the complaints with this map right here, you see, the verticality. Critical reception of this map was somewhat negative due to how tight and vertical the map was. The elevators utilized in the map served to add a bit of randomness in the frantic survival of the onslaught of zombies. They also served as a way to traverse between floors, and I'd wager this map would have been quite fun if it weren't for the fact they removed a crucial perk one map prior, PhD Flopper, a perk that grants immunity to fall damage as one of its benefits. And the team was well aware of this reality too, as they did add PhD Flopper into the map. Just completely inaccessible, you see. Viewable only if you record the footage and slow it down. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, the team was teasing us. How the fuck did this game mode not die with this map, man? And as the team was dancing with the Reaper, somehow, someway, the mode lived on. And in retrospect, the map isn't terrible, just different. The problem mainly lies in the fact that it failed its job. It failed to excuse transit. Do we really have to continue playing Town for another 3 months? I guess we do. I think the fact that BO2 zombies didn't die with Dire Eyes and is remembered upon fondly now only proves how revolutionary the second DLC map, Mob of the Dead, really was. Ironically, Revolution was the name of the first DLC pack containing Dire Eyes. If only they flipped the names of the second one. Mob of the Dead was how Jason Blundell propelled himself into global reverence, you see. You ask a random person on the street if he knows Jason Blundell, they will most likely call 911 on you, but for the sake of the agenda I'm trying to push, let's just say that they will say, yes, I do know of my Messiah. As if my 2-hour practical tribute to Jason Blundell wasn't enough, I will say he saved zombies from a pathetic demise. Now, reasonably, you cannot attribute everything good about zombies or good about Mob of the Dead to one person. There's a lot more to a map than just direction or writing, but with Jason Blundell came an era of zombies he's associated with, an era pushing replayability, axing the simplistic formula of zombies that once was, but first and foremost, an era pushing the lore. Now, regardless of your religious stance, the concept of hell is particularly one that's hard to comprehend, a place of eternal punishment and infinite pain. I mean, it's difficult to comprehend just what infinity even is. What Mob of the Dead does so well is that it makes you really understand just what a hell can be, at least for its notable celebrity cast of these 4 characters. In the 1930s, you have our main character, Sal, and he builds himself an empire of drug and alcohol distribution. The cops eventually apprehend Sal and lock him up, along with his 3 closest partners. Not just any jail, mind you, but the infamous and unescapable Alcatraz prison, surrounded with the freezing and cold waters that stretch for miles and miles before hitting the shore of mainland San Francisco. Sal, Billy, Michael, and Arlington were sentenced away for life due to the sheer amount of tomfoolery they partook in. But our dear Al couldn't stand that. He hated the fact that he'll be locked up in a cage for the rest of his feeble life. And so he devises a plan. An escape plan that consists of building a plane out of scrap material on the roof of the prison and flying off toward freedom. The plan, of course, was inherently ambitious. Too ambitious. Sal, Billy, and Finn try to work with him, but they keep being let down over and over again. So how can one execute this plan, let alone in complete secrecy as to not get caught? It didn't take long before the plan was scrapped. Taking hope away from a human is taking away the only bastion they have. It utterly destroys them. Plan's failure infuriated the 3 mobsters, who began to craft their own weapons as they just couldn't bear the defeat. They then lure Arlington to the roof of the prison, where they murdered him in cold blood. This event comes out, of course, and the 3 mobsters consequently get sentenced to death by the electric chair, entering purgatory. These mobsters go back in time and enter the present once more, this time overrun by zombies. This is where we pick up. Our characters, of course, don't know what they did to Al on the roof, and so as they're devising a plan to get out just as they once did back then, the zombies attack them, and this prison starts to turn into their own personal little hell. The egg quest has you acquiring the parts of the plane to execute the escape plan, which never worked out in the first place, mind you, and you succeed, surprisingly. Or at first, anyway. You crash into the Golden Gate Bridge and learn firsthand that you can't evade fate. In trying to escape the chair, you find that the chair finds you anyway. With no way off the bridge, your only option is to strap yourself in, dying once more. And the cycle repeats, and they just keep on doing this over and over and over again, with no memory of what happened the cycle prior. The quest has you inputting some numbers into a panel at one point, specifically the numbers assigned to the mobsters of the prison, and you'd find that Stanley Ferguson, the warden of the prison, left audio logs detailing exactly what I've just told you. The mobsters, now armed with the knowledge of what exactly has been happening in these cycles, must make a decision. Or rather, you, the player, must make a decision. Kill Al once more as revenge, and the whole cycle repeats again and again, with you riding the damned plane and meeting your fate regardless. A hellish punishment for all the sins you've committed as unhinged mobsters. Kill the 3 mobsters playing as Arlington, though. You get to finally break the cycle and evade your fate. This ending, of course, plays into Black Ops 4, and detailing exactly what it entails would involve delving into the COD Zombies lore. And doing that would easily triple the runtime of this video so far, ladies and gentlemen. It's such a simple concept when you really boil it down, but it's the execution of this idea paired with the fucking imagery. The chairs bluntly coming down on you as you attempt to escape your fate, as if a higher being is taunting you. I always talk greatly of the horror in COD Zombies and level design and whatnot, and this map in particular knocks it out the fucking park with how accurately they modeled the prison map compared to its real life counterpart. That is a novel achievement in and of itself, man. Of course, all of this cemented this map as one of the all-time best and legendary Zombies maps of all time. The first of its kind. The map is fondly remembered upon to this day, and critical reception remains to be that of respect. Some people didn't like the map for one reason though. In pushing replayability, simplicity lost out in the end. The once simple act of getting to the pack punch now requires you to build a whole ass plane to get to the bridge where the machine is located. This didn't sit well for the people who grew up with maps like the recent Kino, of course. And thus, 2 new genders were created. Those who identify with Jimmy Zielinski, the director of most of the notable classic Zombies maps, and Jason Blundell, who spearheaded most of the modern Zombies maps. Shout out to the people who identify with Jason, for real, gotta be one of my favorite genders. The very next map, Buried, was not directed by Blundell though. In fact, it was the last stand of classic Zombies, and yes, you can argue that it wasn't truly classic due to the new mechanics. The only major criticism of this map is that it's too easy and simple. And it is, but you can apply that criticism to a lot of the classic Zombies maps, which begs the question, just how did this criticism even come about? It's worth noting how this criticism is pretty recent relative to the other examples, but let's be real here, how the fuck is this criticism even valid? You can shoot a ball and it can land in either simplicity's court or complexity's court, neither of which are inherently bad. It just so happens that after a relatively complex map, we received a simple map, a simple but fun map. The main issue here is replayability, of course, or rather the lack thereof. You push simplicity, you'll get less replayability. That was the entire reason the team pushed complexity instead, and I believe the community sort of proved how big of a role replayability plays when it comes to these maps. Careful what you wish for, I guess, because now you gotta deal with Origins, the finale to this game's Zombies mode, and one of the most complex Zombies maps ever released. I will stand to state that this map did complexity right. Everything it did for a fucking reason. The intricacies interwoven in the Easter egg quest have so much thought put into them from a pure gameplay perspective. Maybe not really, actually, now that I think about it, it's just picking parts up once more, but it's not back and forth like Transit, at least. The map benefits from having a great level design, and it plays out beautifully. Then it comes to the upgrades, and this is where the bane of some people's existence rears its ugly head. They really do be asking you to decode ancient Mesopotamian cuneiform writing just to make one of the weapons stronger form. Like, do I really need to say much more? On one hand, this is the type of shit I love Zombies for, but I cannot ignore the reality that most people will have to pull up a guide on their phones to do this each and every single game that they play. Like, no one is gonna tattoo the steps to the Origins wind staff upgrade on the left thigh and look at it every single time that they play it. Like, this is what fueled the extreme simplicity of Cold War Zombies later on. But still, this is just the type of shit that you'll have to put up with when it comes to Daddy Blundell and the sheer amount of tomfoolery it takes. The community, of course, generally put this map up on a pedestal that only Mob of the Dead can possibly reach. Origins was cemented as an all-time legendary map, and it gave the game mode its final moment of glory. After the troubled launch, we enter a deep slumber, lasting 3 years. Yeah, no doubt, as you've come to expect, that Black Ops 2 will receive the highest honor of Wood Smash, placed right between the ass cheeks that are World at War and the first Black Ops 4. Now, with the release of the next-gen consoles, Infinity Ward heavily pushed next-gen graphical fidelity for their brand new game, Call of Duty Ghosts. They really emphasized the graphical fidelity in the dog model, as you can clearly see here. So this game's undoubtedly better than World at War. I'll place it in the Wood Smash tier just because of this, but of course then the game actually came out. It seems that the team over at IW didn't learn a fucking thing from Black Ops 2. All that talk character depth this and personality that. Those were nothing apparently. See, Ghosts is a game about brotherhood, about overcoming odds, no matter how underpowered you are, and I admit this game had a cool setup, it really did. But the silent fucking protagonist you play as, man, it cemented this game as one that was simply never meant to go anywhere to begin with. Tell me, how would you tell an emotional story about brotherhood when one guy is mute and the other guy, let's be real here, is not all that interesting? You can't, at least not with this game. The game begins with your father telling you these mythical ghosts who were special ops that completed missions thought to be impossible. The presentation is striking as you imagine them as these fierce underdogs who barely get any recognition. Your thoughts naturally run wild. Then you cut to a peaceful family picnic. Then, I shit you not, you cut to the fucking apocalypse not 2 minutes later, I tell you. Now in the obvious beta test for Infinite Warfare, you get to see how the apocalypse happened, and the whole conflict is set up right here. You have this federation who took over South America and they want to take over the US now. That's it. I shit you not, that's all they came up with after Modern Warfare. Who's their leader? God knows. What's their motive? God knows. How'd they come into power? Does God even know at this point? It baffles me how many fucking shortcuts they took to set this conflict up. There is no depth to the enemy. Fucking dried up pond water has more depth than this shit right here, and quite frankly, the main villain in this game is this good guy turned bad, Rourke. Now pronouncing his name will make me sound like Scooby-Doo. Rourke, Shag. And even then, he does not explain much of the Federation's motive. Black Ops 2 took its sweet ass time going over Raul's backstory to justify why exactly he hates the West as bad as he does. It justifies the conflict, and I believe they should have taken even more time with it. But it still stands as a golden example of good conflict with a good villain in this franchise. Ghosts pisses on that, man. It literally refuses to elaborate. Like, that's some Giga Chat shit right there. What the fuck? I always believe that something worse than negativity is mediocrity. If your product is bad, it'll at least be remembered as something bad, but if it's mediocre, no one will remember it. Ghost's campaign really treads the line between negativity and mediocrity, and it ultimately falls in mediocrity's court. This game has done some things right. The apocalyptic representation of the states is striking, and the presentation of the cutscenes, the level design, all of it is great. It's just the story that falls short. At that point, why even have a campaign to begin with? Black Ops 2 is remembered for Raul's uprising, for Mason's death, for Raul's fiercely delivered lines regarding his lust for vengeance, his tormented past regarding his sister Josefina getting burned alive, all because of an insurance scam. Ghosts is remembered for the fucking dog model, and of course doggy is something substantial. It's very valuable, we have to consider it, of course. You go on an extremely forgettable goose chase after the main villain, and you ultimately confront him, finally achieving the goal you didn't really care about that much to begin with. Ah, finally. Peace at last. Critical reception of this game was one that was very negative, mostly for the reasons I've already described, as well as the multiplayer of this game turning out to be something lackluster. But oh, there's a zombies type mode included with this game as well. Is it any good? It's shitty and I simply refuse to elaborate. The masses of course immediately compared the mode to Treyarch zombies and disliked the mode at the time. And of course there's now a part in the community that considers the game mode as one that is underrated, saying that it didn't deserve the hate. I hate this shit so much, by the way. Every fucking time a bad COD game releases, people hate on it, but after a couple more bad COD games release, they revert to saying, oh, this one game was good, it deserved better, bro. I'ma slap your ass cheek so hard to fall off the bone, I swear to God. This game mode revolves around aliens instead of zombies, you see, and instead of wave-based progression, it's linear and objective-based. I can see the resemblance of Extinction in the latest Treyarch zombies games, ironically enough. There's this whole story behind the mode too. I sincerely find it to be too mediocre to cover in depth. I'm gonna take a shortcut myself, save my own time as well as yours, and just place Ghost in the broad tier where it simply deserves to be. Now, after a rather subpar game, you'd think that the next Call of Duty would compensate, right? No. Ladies and gentlemen, the jetpacks were the most sinful thing to ever have been in the Call of Duty games, according to the average 5-year-old kid addicted to sensationalism all the way back in 2014. How do I know? I was that 5-year-old kid myself. So ladies and gentlemen, the actual issue here was that franchise fatigue was really setting in at this point in time. Call of Duty as a franchise did everything it possibly could. The MW series is over. The Black Ops duology is over as well. There's not much room for innovation, and even by putting the players in a brand new futuristic setting, it didn't change the fact that it still felt like the same old Call of Duty, with the same old contrived campaign thought up on the spot with the same depthless, bitchless characters. But right as Advanced Warfare was about to release, something wretched was happening. Let me tell you about the bane of my existence, a darkness brewing deep within a certain social media site dubbed the YouTube. You see, zombies YouTubers were becoming more of a thing.
Hey guys, missed it. See? You
Exemplify back, and in today's video, we're going to be doing the Call of Duty Advanced Warfare co-op reveal trailer! It's pretty good, not so bad. Okay, black guy, confirmed. So this is campaign. We don't really care about campaign. You play it once when you're bored.
My dear liberals, I am afraid to bring you some unfortunate news. Sir Alexander has dubbed the Call of Duty campaigns just something you play when you're bored, and that no one cares. So it is with the utmost regret that you should now consider this whole video so far of me going over every campaign utterly useless. I deeply apologize once more.
First look, EXO survived. Pre-order? I'd rather wipe my ass with this game.
See, typical zombies YouTuber, bro. Big cock but no cum. Like, they say they'd rather wipe their ass with this game, but then proceed to cover the game religiously for the next years. Oh god, you're just like me for real. Now, Advanced Warfare's most notable feature is its villain, and I'm honestly debating if I should even mention his name and criticize him, because anyone who says anything about him literally drops dead within days, so I don't exactly know what to do here. As for the plot of this game, it really is a generic COD campaign, the likes of one we received a year prior, Ghosts. They present this cool concept of, oh, instead of playing as a soldier answering to the militaries of countries like the US, Russia, China, etc., you play as a soldier hired by this mega corporation turned private military that answers to no one. Does the game take that idea somewhere? Obviously, it's a resounding no. Play as this guy who finds himself in a tragic accident losing his arm. The leader of this megacorp private military Atlas Corporation hires you, gives you an exosuit, and you help the world by rescuing presidents of countries that need your help and do some good in the world. See how fucking predictable that setup is? No one in their right minds would believe that the leader of the most powerful private military, whose actor is known for playing great villains by the way, is actually the hero in this story. Through some forgettable means you figure out, oh, he's stirring up shit on purpose, cause as a private military, you need conflict to keep revenue flowing. Bing bang boom, I beat my dick up with a broom, and you confront the guy, and just as Daddy Scar left Mufasa to the hounds. What is this? This is pre-rendered. Why the fuck is there a quick time event? Now, I considered this game's story to be an utter waste of time, just as I thought Ghost's story. But one thing AW did right was that it was fun. At least in the beginning, the new movement system really brought this level of verticality to the game, and oh my god, that just means they're gonna close the levels up more. See, this game's level design doesn't come close to what Ghosts had to offer. Like, at least that shit was more open and had an eerie background to it. In making the environment more detailed, they closed it up that much more in favor of the linearity they're not putting up on the pedestal and showcasing for some reason. While AW manages to be fun for a while, it's something that everyone can live without. I seriously cannot stress this enough. This game is worth it if you can find it for like $5, but is it worth it spending 7 hours to go through? Of course, that's a resounding fuck no, baby. This game also desperately tried the zombie shtick, and honestly, you'd be beating a dead horse by comparing it to Treyarch's works, but even if you don't, it's still pee-pee poo-poo, let's be real here. I remember being very excited for the first map, actually. I remember taking the trash chute and thinking it was the coolest thing ever. I remember having fun in my first game of Exo Zombies. My second game of Exo Zombies, however, this is yet another shameless zombies reskin with yet another forgettable story. You can say that the DLC maps are good all you want, it doesn't discount the fact that it is utterly forgettable, just like anything else in this game. And so to save what little is left of my sanity as well as your own, ladies and gentlemen, let's just skip to the end. This game ain't it. Falling behind the third Modern Warfare, of course. In April of 2015, Black Ops 2 received an update out of the blue. A game that's been dead for years receiving an update is sus as fuck, so of course people went on to investigate, and they noticed that in the Black Ops 2 multiplayer map Plaza, the ads that show on the screen in the map suddenly changed to show these Snapchat QR codes. Scanning them will lead you to these really eerie videos of some frozen forest.
Listen only to the sound of my voice. Let your thoughts drift. Let the bad memories fade. Let peace be upon you.
Yeah, you get the idea. This shit still creeps me out, man, I swear to God. Of course, unlike the GK Nova 6 BO1 thing, it was obvious that this was a viral marketing stunt for Treyarch's next game. The teasers were so good that I had people believing that 2015's newest Call of Duty's genre will be horror. That's some crazy shit, needless to say. I, for one, was excited beyond belief. I even went as far as to watch these fake Black Ops 3 leaks that were dropping and just fantasizing about it being real. Yeah, all believability went out the fucking window, didn't it? Like, what is that? that. Of course, the marketing campaign eventually led to the grand reveal, and I still remember that day, man. April 9th, 2015, Treyarch drops a video with some classic quotes spoken by iconic characters like Woods and Reznov, building up and up to the inevitable climax. Just 3 days before the world premiere of the latest Black Ops entry, a live-action teaser drops hinting at what the plot will entail. Mankind's greatest mistake will be its inability to control the technology it has created. The teaser tracks humanity's advancement in technology and medicine, eventually breaking into the future with huge progress in prosthetics and limb replacement. The video, of course, eventually stops tracking at the year 2065, the year in which the game's events take place. Now, with just 3 days left on the clock for the world premiere, my blue balls kept exponentially increasing and increasing in size. Let's rip the band-aid off, shall we? Personally speaking, the game looked like ass with how fucking high my expectations were, bro. Like, at that point, like, hats off to the marketing team for real, but no fucking human was ever gonna deliver on my expectations. I'm gonna be really... General reaction was, of course, oh my god, another futuristic game? But me and my homies couldn't care less about that, because the real purpose of this premiere wasn't the campaign, wasn't the multiplayer either, but rather... This 1 second clip had me and every single motherfucker in the community coming gallons, bro. This is how starved we were for any zombies content. But let's get to the point, okay? After being fed dog shit for 3 years, can Treyarch give us something good? Fuck. Maybe, baby. The premise of this game is one that is undoubtedly one of the best and most creative foundations in the franchise and beyond. After Raul's downfall at the end of Black Ops 2, my guy lost all his bitches. His shell arms company, Tacitus Corporation, was bought out by this one corporation called Coalescence. Thrown decades into the future, we'll discover that they developed this inevitable microchip brain implant thing Muskie Boy has been so horny over, and they developed it simply to make their lives easier regardless of application. It could be in learning, it could be in combat, it could be anything. So we have this brain implant chip fitted with an AI that adapts to your needs. The question is, how can we use this to defeat communism, ladies and gentlemen? The CIA, of course, was involved with testing this experimental D&I tech on these test subjects in Singapore against their will, forcing them through a lot of agony. And the central idea is the question of what happens when you combine an adaptable AI that learns and grows from the experiences of humans with humans that only know pain. If you guessed the cyber virus Corvus, hooray, you win a blowy from yours truly. Of course, the AI grows sentience. It's gotta. It empathizes with the test subjects and their pain, and it tries to shut the project down by destroying the facility in question. Also releasing Nova 6 gas being tested on in the facility. Why the fuck was it even there? Damn, now 300,000 people dead on God. I think this classifies as an on-God situation more so than a for-real situation. Of course, the CIA tries to cover this whole shit up by sending special ops into the facility to do important CIA business and retrieve data or whatever the fuck that they do. But alas, the ops discover the actuality of the situation and question their superiors and end up resurrecting Corvus out of the abyss as some poor test subject's darkened asshole. Now, of course, this plot is so out there for a Call of Duty game, you might think, and I honestly wonder too, like, why the fuck? Oh my god, no fucking wonder. The premise is intriguing, you have to admit. So, what exactly is up with these low ratings? Let's get this out of the way. Well, it just so turned out that Blundy Boy here felt quirky. A little bit too quirky, and decided that the actual game that you play will have nothing to do with the story. That's right, everything that I've just said is not discoverable in the game, but rather some comics released after the fact. Yes sir, this game is not a game, it's actually an experience. A meth-fueled one specifically.
Say something. Please.
Playing the campaign of this game, you will understand nothing. You will know nothing, you won't know where you are. Might as well start carrying luggage, you absolute donkey. Why am I fighting zombies in World War II all of a sudden? See, this game is special in that if you don't play it, you will understand just as much, if not more, when it comes to the story than if you did play it. It's a cool concept, right? I have to admit, but the execution, like, I don't know if they didn't have the time or what the fuck. But alas, I just want to know why this game has the name Black Ops. It must share a lot of plot with the other games, right? Wrong. This game has literally nothing connecting it to the other Black Ops games, aside from the fact that a recurring company in this game bought out Raul's shell company, as I've said before, and you cannot get more of a boring connection than that in any sequel to any product. Now, I think the campaign here is a mixture of pee-pee poo-poo and cum, with the latter being its saving grace. As for zombies, oh boy. In the build-up to Black Ops 3, there was this Comic-Con where they revealed the latest and greatest Shadows of Evil, and what the map turned out to be is a mixture of Origins and H.P. Lovecraft's Average Wet Dream, and nothing of which makes either constituent great. You see, people hated this map at launch for its complexity that was there just for the sake of complexity, and now people praise this map as an all-time legendary one-of-a-kind. One-of-a-kind, these nuts! Okay, my nuts are two of a kind, or at least they used to be. I lost one fighting a cursed beast. Man, that homemade fried chicken was never worth it. The zombies community is, of course, as equivocal as ever when it comes to this. Wait, was that the word? Yeah, it was. Cause y'all bitches open to two interpretations. Two-sided ass motherfucker. He's just like me for real. COD fans have this habit of hating something when it drops and then falling prey to nostalgic bias by loving it a year or two later. Besides shadows, of course, you had these all-new gobblegums which you could easily abuse.
So what you see here, on those are gobblegums.
Why is there gums in zombies?
I don't know. Some random guy named Jason Blundell who told me to go into arts, and I listened. You're gonna press this button. This is actually about $40 of my disposable income shown to you right in front of you.
I can't even get
Yeah. So you jump, bitch. This is my money we're wasting here. Jump. Buy the shit.
Oh, what did I get?
So you got one of the best perks in the game. It makes it so that you're basically invincible now. So if someone...
Now, Treyarch realized that the added complexity of Shadows of Evil, as well as maps that we're going to put out in the future, would place a considerable portion of the fan base in one big-ass dilemma. Gentlemen, a short view back to the past. 30 years ago, Jimmy Zielinski told us, take a monkey, place him in Kino, and he is able to do everything in the map naturally. 30 years later, Blundell told us, I have to design another Bible when I make a zombies map. It's very complicated. And Joe Biden said he calculated in a map, I don't remember which map, but the wrong quantum mechanics in the Easter egg. Question for you. Is zombies today too complicated with 20 or more steps in the Easter egg? Are you too much under effort, under pressure to turn the power on? What are your wishes for the future concerning the gameplay direction during the gameplay? Less Easter egg steps, more? Or less, more communication from the devs?
Can I ask you who that question is to?
He said it's
Oh, sorry. I'll beg your
and
pardon.
myself, so.
Sorry.
You didn't listen. Can you repeat the question?
Treyarch knew they were fucking with hundreds of thousands of people, more or less, who like zombies for simplicity, and so to soften the blow a little bit, they gave them not only gobblegums, but a $5 expansion to the game that should have just been included in the main game itself, because the expansion is just their Reese as it always was. Nothing new. Plays exactly the same, just looks a bit prettier, that's about it. Now, the gobblegums serve as something innovative, at least on the surface. You see, most of them sound interesting, gums like ephemeral enhancement,
ephemeral,
turning your weapon into its upgraded form for 60 seconds or more, or pop shocks, electrifying zombies when you knife them. But the problem starts when literally nobody uses them, ladies and gentlemen. You also have stigma, because class-based discrimination started to be a thing in zombies, in that if you use unquenchable, you ain't got no bread, no bitches. Compensating for fuckaholic, bro, get a J.O. and spend your racks on the real shit. And of course, you might wonder where in the fuck this discrimination comes from, because as a zombies player, all of this will be a first for you. And the fact of the matter is that the discrimination comes from me, okay? I'm gonna be honest. I will discriminate against you based on the combination of your gums as well as how many of them you have. Single or double digits, perkers, near deaths, chopping freeze, that type of shit. The only classic gum allowed is alchemical, of course. But I believe one gum in particular is often forgotten, and not many people see how insanely overpowered and game-breaking it actually is. Though, I admit I'm kind of lying there, as it's one of the most common things people say about zombies.
This is the #1 thing all zombie players on Earth in Black Ops 3 say. Are you ready for this?
Oh god, here we go.
Oh no, I ran out of license contractor.
The giant, Darius's remaster, isn't something I hate. In fact, it was the only map I had touched for months till the first DLC dropped. Like, I wouldn't touch Shadows with a 10-foot barge bolt, bro, and to this day, I'd prefer not to. But of course, there's a bit of exaggeration that comes with that, because the Easter egg steps are literally just opening pack-a-punch, getting a specialist weapon, doing the same defense step 4 times over, and then boss fight. It's actually the step after the boss that I have a problem with, you see. To this day, I have not a nary a fucking clue as to how the last step works, bro. Like, what do these purple things on the floor do? I got no fucking idea. And the fact of the matter is, this Easter egg step really outlines how competent your team is, because while the whole Easter egg can be done solo, this step needs 4 players. 3 of them shocking this one, I don't even know what this shit is, bro, but one of these 3 players has to call the train and immediately turn into a cursed beast from a blood-borne hentai I'm sure I've seen once, just to do the same thing as the other 2 players, which is just shocking this battery thing, while the 4th player sits his ass down at spawn with the simplest job, which is just to shoot these keepers for some reason. The 4th player is always me, ladies and gentlemen. The thing is, like, I don't know what the fuck I did in a past life to deserve this shit. I am positive I am cursed, because whenever I play with my friends, and I've played with a ton of fucking people, bro, most of which I've forced, I'm gonna be real here, and everyone does what they're supposed to do, but there's always that one motherfucker who just forgets how to play zombies all of a sudden, and what is a 1-minute step takes 20 minutes. Sometimes I'm that motherfucker, I'm gonna be honest. That mentality of just not caring and wanting to get it all over with, making careless mistakes in doing so, really shows how bland the Easter egg quest plays out. The map's theme though is fucking incredible. The 1940s New York type beat shit out with jazz music and all that shit, I dig that shit, but the quest, man, the quest, the journey of just unlocking Pack-a-Punch, man. Of course, you'll have that one person saying it's not a big deal, you can do it in a round or 2, and he's completely right, but that doesn't change the fact if the average person having fun doing this the first time they play the map, but really feeling how tedious it actually is the 2nd or 3rd time to play the map, let alone the 10th or 20th time. Compare this to the first DLC map, Dreisendrach's quest. I have this one friend whom I introduced zombies as a franchise to with this map. Like, I gave him the cracked version of zombies for real. The next day I discovered that the boy fucking bought the game and figured out how to speedrun the Easter egg quest in like 15 minutes tops. Like, my guy devoted his entire life to become more efficient than most world record holders out there, and you wouldn't get something like that with a map like Shadows. Dreisendrach's quest is one of the, it is the most well thought out quest in the history of zombies, challenged only by Garrod and maybe Ancient Evil. It plays out so well, and you could argue that it doesn't do anything that much different from the current Kingpin of Zombies Origins, but because most of the Easter eggs is just getting the elemental bows, which aren't that much different from Origin staffs. But while the concept may remain the same, the execution for sure differs. In Origins, you literally just pick up parts in the map and build a staff, okay? You can't really argue that that's creative, but in DE though, you have layers to that shit. For the electric bow, you gotta humble yourself in realizing how dog shit your aim really is, because you wasted 45 arrows just to light this one bonfire up, and there's still 2 more to go for reefer. You got wall running, you got classic charging shit up with zombie souls, all that shit. For the wolf boy, you have Turkey, which automatically makes this map wood smash tier. For the void boy, you got some memorization shit going on. Oh, you're a zombies fan? What is my name? And of course, you have the magma bow. We don't talk about the magma bow. What this map does right is how replayable all of this is, and not tedious at all, aside from the magma bow. The only thing bad about this map is to do with the pacing. Regarding the dragons and how long it takes for them to chew the zombies up, like goddamn, they be chewing like it's well done for real. And of course, the boss fight in DE absolutely shits on every other boss fight of this game, apart from Garrod's. Revelations is just a copy-paste Shadows, and Shadows ain't something good, bro. 3 players shooting the boss, having a seizure all over the map just so that one person holds F when the boss is at a certain spot. Like, it's so lackluster. This one time, I shit you not, I was playing with my friends and we did that shit in what felt like 1 second, bro. If your boss fight can be completed in a couple seconds and barely presents a challenge to the players, can it really even be considered a boss fight? Well, DE takes note of that and gives you a pretty simple boss fight with 3 phases. So to this day, I have never seen anyone completing this boss fight who doesn't have a ton of skill, okay? Like, honestly, if you can't complete this boss fight, it's literally just a skill issue. I don't know what to tell you. There's this intricate depth to the boss here, and surviving against an onslaught of zombies and panzers, all the while paying attention to the arena for an opportunity to attack the main boss. And of course, you have to watch out for these hazards, which don't do much damage, but the damage adds up, man. And if you make one mistake, you simply go down, and like a set of dominoes, the rest of your team follows. DE, just as with what Mob of the Dead did for Black Ops 2, gave a breath of fresh life to Black Ops 3. See, this map was a global hit. Of course, the hype that came with this map didn't last too long, as the next DLC map turned out to be Setsubo. And with all the shit I've talked about this map, I have to admit I was somewhat hypocritical, because recently, the unthinkable happened. I started to enjoy this map. Look, I am sorry, okay? This map is fucking good once you get past the gardening simulator aspect of it. I do believe the team got a bit too quirky here, but what Setsubo does extremely well is what I've been missing for the past 2 games. Horror. It's the only map in this game which even tries to do horror, and fuck, bro, this map has some weight once you consider the real life shit it's based on. Like, Unit 731, bro, reading that shit up on Wikipedia literally ruined my fucking year. See, at the end of World War II, the US pulled an epic pro-gamer move on Japan, ending the war, and many people are still under the false impression that, oh, Japan were these angels who didn't do anything wrong. And I have to mention that the hundreds of thousands of innocent people that died, that shit cannot be excused. But just like with any other conflict in history, it just simply isn't that black and white. Because regardless of the innocents that make the masses up, the people higher up are severely fucked up. At the time, their Imperial Army had these little research units devoted to all kinds of topics, ranging from biology to weaponry to whatever the fuck. One of these little units was of course Unit 731, a little research group that partook in an egregious amount of trolling. You see, I hate to be that one guy who makes a video game reference when dealing with serious shit, but it's literally real life Group 935. Okay, now that my primal instinct is out of the way, this little unit engaged in a ton of quote-unquote human experimentation that was for the betterment of quote-unquote research and knowledge. Literally the excuses I gave to my mom when she caught me watching Rick Defend Dempsey Rule 34 on the family TV when I thought I'd be home alone for at least an hour longer, but that type of experimentation this unit performed is just hard to comprehend. Like the easiest example to bring up would be how they performed vivisection on humans. The act of vivisection being an operation in which you dissect a living organism. And if that wasn't enough, they also gave no anesthesia to their quote-unquote patients. You have these accounts of former Unit 731 members telling you all about how hard it is to perform that shit for the first time, but that the second or third time round, you kind of get desensitized and used to it. And these ex-members, of course, are now people who pass as cheerful old men with respectable jobs, you know, farmers and shit, happy family men. But you ask them about their past and you learn the type of shit they willingly did for fun. And I quote, "Professional people too like to play." From a professor testifying against these experimenters, there's a ton of horrible accounts you can read up on, most of which I literally cannot talk about on this platform, mind you. Trust me, it gets so much worse. Lots of women and children are involved, unborn ones aren't treated any different. But how this relates to the war is that they were also experimenting on weaponizing the plague, the Black Death in practical bombs, and their endeavors in China resulted in the deaths of hundreds of thousands of innocent men, women, and children. Here's a fun bit. They were planning to use seaplanes to kamikaze the bubonic plague into San Diego to destroy its community with a horrible epidemic. It was scheduled for the 22nd of September 1945, but just 5 weeks earlier, Japan surrendered due to the obvious. And the only reason we even know about this is because the US co-opted everything done by the units and granted immunity to every motherfucker who took part in these little experiments. War is never black and white. In this case, it's just a what the fuck said to both parties for real. Walking around in the labs and shit of Zetsubo, my imagination naturally ran wild when I played this map for the first time all the way back in 2016. I never thought it'd be this fucked up though. You know, normally with horror games and movies, I never really feel deeply affected by them, but no matter how horrifying your piece of art is, the limiting factor is that it's based in fiction, and fiction is nothing compared to reality. Though I still remember when the map came out for the first time, I sat around waiting for it to download on my PlayStation 4, and finally around noon the download finished, 1 Mbps connection type beat. You see, this map came out in a tough part of my life, around when difficulties peaked actually, and so something as simple as Zetsubo, you know, just another okay zombies map for many people, meant a lot to me at the time. The simplicity of my escapism, you know, just loading the new highly anticipated zombies map and forgetting about my life for the duration of that match, that shit kept me going, and I can't ever forget that. As for an objective look at the map, it's fucking cool. The best part about this map is undoubtedly the spider mini boss. I want more of this shit in zombies, man. Elden Ring field boss type beat for real. It sucks that this boss isn't particularly difficult, especially when you come prepared with a team that has upgraded dingoes and ray guns all around. Now, most of this map's replayability lies in its main gimmick, the plants. I'm still discovering new shit you can make by combining different colors of waters. Like, of course, gimmicks can be a hit or miss, and it just so happened that a gimmick that required you to save a zombie and go around planting seeds and watering plants all around the map and, you know, not actually playing zombies didn't exactly vibe with a lot of the community, but the map still did a ton of things right with its horror and atmosphere. Man, the spiders scared the shit out of me. They still do, I'm gonna be honest, dude. And the memes, man, the community was hilarious at this point in time. It was toxic as fuck, don't get me wrong, but Stockholm Syndrome was a thing, and man, I was a living proof of its existence. God damn, I love that shit. Zetsubo made the angle of, oh, Treyarch is trying out a lot of complex shit and gimmicks to make their maps interesting, a very real one, and it's an angle that really peaked in the next DLC map, Rod. Blondie Boy one day looked at all of the people in the community making jokes about how you have to understand quantum mechanics to do anything in zombies nowadays, and thought it'd be quirky to actually require them to unironically understand quantum mechanics. Garad's quest is insanely fun and intricate, but there's this one fucking step. I don't know how the community even figured it out, honestly. In fact, reading this shit, like, I barely even understand what any of this means, bro. Like, you route some air through a series of tubes and avoid looping it or routing it incorrectly. Like, there's some obvious trial and error involved here, because how else would you know which location's number goes where? But
it started at bridge, went up to department, then went over here to infirmary, then went What kind of circuit is that, Treyarch? What is that? It looks like a sombrero on the paper. They're making the Treyarch logo. Oh my god.
Fortunately, it's all established now. Established so well that people have programmed these tools that just require you to enter your start location signified by this green light and your end location signified by this purple wild thing, and the pathway you have to follow is automatically calculated. Science has come so far. I love the community, honestly. The complexity of COD zombies at this point in time was getting so bad that as an outsider, you'd see the people in the community doing shit that indicated substance abuse, okay? When people look at interviews of Jason Blundell and start theorizing that his fucking blinking had something to do with Morse code. Like, there's some fuck shit going on here, bro. I'm gonna be honest. And they were right. Jesus Christ. Surprisingly enough, the map was a hit in the community, regardless of how complex or intricate its design was taken to be. It might have had something to do with how to turn the power on, you just have a simple traditional switch. Instead of watering your neighbor's backyard, killing 2 Shreks and a donkey, and unclogging spider come from the sewers, just one map prior, in the words of Flex as always. Or something to do with the steps of getting Pack-a-Punch being similar to a traditional Dere-style try-defense sequence, just with a ton more pizzazz. You see, this map is only complex when it needs to be. That's what sets this map apart from all the other bitches on disc. All steps leading you to this final boss fight, of course, a fight I absolutely adore. I'll have the balls to say that it really is unrivaled to this day. A fight that wasn't exactly easy, per se, which is why some glitchers ended up using an unlimited undead man walking exploit that made zombies walk slower than my brain runs in math class for the whole game to be the first people who completed this map's egg. And I'm gonna take this moment to set this shit straight. The people who used the exploit were smart. Period. If you have a shortcut in life, you'd be stupid as hell not to take it, alright? Although getting results without the use of the shortcuts is also commendable, of course. See, they didn't use God mode and get first in the world with mod menus and shit, okay? They exploited a mechanic Treyarch didn't bother fixing. An exploit that was known beforehand. An exploit anyone could do. An exploit YouTubers themselves did.
One of the people that agree with this opinion is a huge zombies YouTuber named the JFK Gamer. He has
no. Initially, I was a bit finicky with the whole situation. Oh, does it really count if they glitched it? But when I saw the shit people were saying, man, like, I don't know if people forgot the glitchers are humans too, but I saw some wild fucking shit said to those guys. And of course, I don't know any of those people, like whether we're talking about the glitchers or the shit talkers, but the whole situation had me leaning toward the glitchers, man. Call it empathy, call it whatever. The toxicity came from a minor part in the community, and it can in no way generalize every single person in it. Take it as you will, though. Would you hate the player or would you hate the game? See, Garad is a great map, but it had one big fucking problem. It was fucking broken. When you spend hours doing a difficult quest and head into the boss fight only to it's not a good look, okay? It's also not a good look when Treyarch refuses to fix this glitch, delaying it for as long as they humanly can. Like, God bless this Twitter account, man. They notified us every single day when we desperately needed updates. For all the bullshit, people still persevered without the use of exploits. JC Backfire and his team, first in the world growing without the use of any glitches. How do I know? It's a core part of his personality, you see. My guy flexed that shit for the next 6 years. On God, just what I would do for real. This map is also special in the sense that it is the last completely original Ether map ever. One inconsequential thing that was very controversial in the community was how every subsequent Ether map used remade assets of older maps, like the BO4 Ether maps or like Revelations, the last DLC map of Black Ops 3, a DLC map thought by many to be tactless, as it was seemingly just nostalgia bait for what was supposed to be the final chapter in the zombie storyline. You see, Revelations was going to close off the insanely intricate zombie storyline that had been running for almost a decade at that point in time, with a map that used key areas from some of the most iconic zombies maps from each and every single game. With Noct as your main hub, it is the gateway to legendary Mob of the Dead, to revolutionary Origins, to unnerving Barucht, to fan favorite Kino, to why the fuck is DE here? I actually love this map for one thing. You see, I always get people who have never even touched zombies in their lives to lose their virginity to this map in particular, just to see the looks on their faces when they spawn in.
Whoa, whoa! He just stole whatever. What was that?
When we're talking about the good aspects of Revelations, it more or less ends there, sadly. This map didn't really bring anything new to the table like Garad. Hell, even Zetsubo had something new to offer, regardless of whether you're a fan of it or not. It is kind of funny that even though this map has the worst borderline nonsensical Easter egg quest in the game, after Shadows of Evil, it is still one of the most fun maps in the game that you can play. It's never going to be the average person's go-to map for a quick zombies session, like maps like Kino, D, and Origins would help fill in there, but Revelations still remains to be a map that you'll have fun fun playing if you don't take it too seriously. You can easily shut my entire argument down by saying that there's nothing fun in shooting blue rocks in the sky that are near impossible to notice with the naked eye, just to upgrade the wonder weapon in this map. And fuck it, bro, you're right, I don't know what happened. It doesn't end there. Not only is the side quest for the wonder weapon bad, the main quest is also bad. I've said it probably a gazillion different times on this channel, I'll say it again, because I still cannot fucking fathom what the team was thinking here. When your quest revolves around throwing monkey bombs into the 9 different assholes of a giant Lovecraftian bloodborne hentai monster, you need to go to rehab and seek help immediately, my brother. Right before the release of this map, they were pegging this map's quest as something difficult and time-consuming to figure out, because no matter how intricate Garad's quest was, or how tough DE's quest was, the zombies community still figured that shit out in like a couple hours, alright? I am exaggerating there, of course, but the quest that held out the longest was Shadows, clocking in at 6 days for the community to solve. Other maps like DE or Mob or Origins or even Garad took a day or two at best. And then you have Revelations, clocking in at a record 9 days, a record only beaten by BO4's Classified, but that shit doesn't count, because who'd think that getting around 150 would just give you the cutscene with no foreplay whatsoever, honestly. Revelations took 9 days to solve, not because it was intricate and well thought out, no. It took 9 days because it was simply nonsensical for the most part. Calling a keeper to a specific jump pad with a stupid ass rock you'd never notice in a million years without the use of a guide. A rock that only spawns once you shoot these random ass tombstones out the map in a specific order. The best part of this map is hands down the visual direction. Revelations looks stunning and is a prime example of Treyarch's knack of art and making shit look good. Though of course they lose out in the horror that Zombies was known for at one point, taking this approach. Completing the tedious ass Easter egg with a quick game of hoops and a copy paste of Shadow's boss fight, you finally get the climatic ending to the story that you might as well have grown up with. Cutscene in which a lot happens. It cannot be summarized actually, but I'll try. Some guys talk, damn, now we in a time loop. Community rightfully wasn't particularly happy here. I mean, 9 days for this shit, goddamn. Now of course, when Mob of the Dead puts you in a cycle that you can break, you must also have the option of breaking the Revelation cycle. Oh, there must be a mega super Easter egg that you can do to break the cycle. Oh, what's this ZM_Genesis cutscene file in the game files? Is that it? Damn, it's just a duplicate file of the Shadows intro cutscene. Blunda, you got me again for real. The community was right in speculating that you can break the Rev cycle, but you can only do that in the next game. Pay up, bucko, this is a threat. Now at this point, the next COD came out and people made peace with the reality of waiting another 3 long years to get the answers they so desperately seek. And thus, Zombies enters yet another deep slumber. Or does it? One day, for some reason, the crack hit just a bit too strong, and so Blundell decided to fly on down to Alabama to have a talk with JC Backfire in his little dorm room. Now, yeah, I don't know either, bro, but there had been memes about a supposed all zombies DLC 5 for not only Black Ops 3, but every Black Ops game there is. It goes quite back, and of course, no one really believed that Activision would care enough to break the 4 DLC tradition just for zombies. Oh, there's been a leak. 8 Zombies map remaster for BO3. Ha, bro, you must be a hyper-realistic, well-dressed Pepe the Frog with red filter and a diva's expression smoking a cigar if you think that shit's real.
You know, it's so hard sometimes to really think about.
It just so turned out that the new Call of Duty flopped so badly that Activision considered the possibility of an all zombies DLC 5 for an older game and thought, shit, that's reasonable. Granted, they had an all zombies DLC before with the 4th DLC for Black Ops 1, Resurrection, with its remastered World at War maps, but to almost double the count of the Zombies map in Resurrection give us 8 maps? God damn now. Okay, of course they were right. Zombies was at an all-time high in terms of popularity, and so capitalizing on it with the $30 nostalgia bait of a DLC, remastering the maps people grew up with would only be a smart choice. And so Zombies Chronicles released literally like a week after the big reveal. Very surprising, but something even more surprising was how differently it played compared to the other maps on disc. In fact, many people considered it to be Black Ops 3.5 due to the improvements in the AI and the sound design, to list some examples. The DLC was, needless to say, extremely successful, going on to be the highest selling DLC of 2017. It offered just what people longed for, you see, the simplicity of zombies. Can people really complain about that shit when they have 7 out of 8 maps in this DLC filling in just for that role? Oh, sure they can. The DLC was priced at a meaty $30, which just didn't vibe with a good number of people. Oh, why should I pay $30 fucking for maps I've already played and bought in earlier games? Oh, why doesn't this come bundled with a season pass? Matter of fact, why does this game cost $100 with a season pass? And I'ma be honest, I was way ahead of all y'all. I hated that the Giant went for $5, alright? That shit was funny to me. This DLC, even with its steep pricing, did a lot of things right. In fact, when you pick this game up for a quick zombie session, you'll likely want to play the Chronicle maps anyway, whether it's Origins or Kino or whatever. And it helps that the base edition of Black Ops 3 doesn't exist anymore and comes bundled with Chronicles. Actually, that's not inherently a good thing when you think about it. What the fuck? But it is free for every PlayStation Plus owner with the whole PlayStation Plus collection shtick Sony pulled out of their ass. Though with everything this DLC does right, the biggest L has got to go to the visual direction. The maps look stunning, don't get me wrong. Entering the biodome and moon looks like entering heaven, my guy. Maybe like the lowest level of heaven, I'm gonna be real here, but you gotta ask yourself, was beauty and eye candy really the thing they were going for when designing the original moon? Varrock's strongest asset is its horror, but now the map just looks beautiful. Moon's strongest asset is its dread, but now this shit just looks beautiful. Goddamn, man, I should have never smoked that shit. Now I'm in BO3 moon. Maps like Shang or Origins are helped by this eye candy approach, but many maps simply lose out on arguably the coolest part about zombies, the horror. But besides that, I cannot really criticize the DLC for that much more. It is by far my favorite expansion of any game, and it's helped by the fact that if you're a zombies fan in the community during this time, you're in for a good time, man. You had to be there, and it's sad because this would be the last time the community would be, in a sense, unified, because by the time the next game comes out, a very big mess unfolds, and by very big mess, I mean an egregiously tremendous mess. And even when that shit calmed down, Cold War came out and divided the community. What was left of it? And then Vanguard came out, and you gotta ask yourself, does the zombies community even exist anymore? Goddamn. But that shit wraps up Black Ops 3. I have to say this game helped me through the toughest time of my life, and it's still a comfort I go back to here and there. I value this game tremendously, so when it comes to the tier list, bro, it's gotta be a fuck out of here, for real, for real. Of course, I consider it to be better than Black Ops 1 simply due to the value zombies had here, but it was still no doubt fall behind Black Ops 2 because you just simply can't ignore a dodgy campaign. Black Ops 3 Zombies is really fucking good, but not good enough to beat both one of the best campaigns in Call of Duty history and also one of the best zombies iterations in the franchise. Good enough to beat Black Ops 1, not so much Black Ops 2 on God. Now here's a fun fact about me. I adore space. I cannot encapsulate my love for space with simple words, okay? In fact, if you were my friend in real life, you know me as a motherfucker who somehow brings in the concept of the end of the universe in the heat death scenario bound to happen in 10 to the power of 100 years unless interrupted by dark energy, all because of a silly little thing called entropy. I bring in all of this bullshit in a conversation about what we had for breakfast. I'm not even joking. It happened with me and my buddies one time. And to be straight with you, how I relate a breakfast of Cheerios to the heat death of the universe needs a formula which has simply not been invented yet, okay? Pythagoras wishes he could predict my bullshit, but with all this bullshit being spouted, you think my favorite franchise at the time going up into space would be something fascinating, right? Wrong. See, as much as I adored Vsauce and watching his videos about how meaningless the concept of existentialism really is when it comes to space, creating my love for space in the process,
but doing the same to this solid steel ball,
I was still a 5-year-old sensationalist fuck who hopped on bandwagons like a sheep, okay? In fact, if I open the trailer for the newest Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, revealing that it's set in space, a wonderful fucking trailer by the way, I'm falling into the trap COD fans are known for. Hate COD games when they release, love them a year later, but I assure you I was merely being an immature donkey, as you might notice this big old dislike I left on this video. Hell, watch me as I remove it, alright? I've changed as a person, I'm proud to admit it. No longer am I an edgy 5-year-old sensationalist bandwagon hopping donkey, alright? I'm just a donkey now. This is my anime character arc and I'm proud of it no matter the result. But as if that wasn't enough, you scroll down and you see the most pathetic showcase of human intelligence. Rakefire Impala 5 years ago. Make 35,000 accounts and dislike this video. No likes, no bitches. I am ashamed to call myself human because when people of my species, you know, people like Pythagoras with this Pythagorean theorem. Damn it, he changed the world with that shit and how he calculated the hypotenuse of his little triangles, man, and how he made sweet love to the hypotenuse. And what did I do? I made this YouTube comment. How fucking pathetic. I removed my dislike, but I will not remove my comment here. Such an act will be a transgression of deceit, damn it. I want you all to see my sin, how flawed I am as a person. Anything otherwise would be complete and utter deception. With my pathetic childhood choices out the way, I must also admit how I never played the campaign of this game. I skipped out on it in an act of protest. You see, 5-year-old me wanted to boycott Activision for making IW by not playing the game. My brother in Christ, you bought the game. But of course, I sat my ass down and gave the game a shot. And fucking hell, man. Try some new stuff, okay? Dogfighting in a Call of Duty, not only that, but dogfighting done decently? God damn, you must be a hyper-realistic, well-dressed Pepe the Frog with a red filter and a devious expression smoking a cigar. If you think you'll get that shit, what else do you want? $1 million? Oh, you fucking clown. Oh, but you are a well-dressed Pepe the Frog, aren't you? Seeing as how decent dogfighting is exactly what we got. You see, this game's campaign is not bad, but to be fair though, anything IW puts out is gonna look like diamonds on a gold ring after the travesty that was Ghosts. But a worthy criticism is that this game does not handle filler well. If you check out how long it takes to beat IW, you'd see that it takes about 7 hours. I'd wager that the game should have been cut down to half that length. It really does drag on at times, but besides that, and once again a boring, depthless, bitchless villain, even if it is Jon Snow, the game's pretty good. For one, my love for space became a borderline fetish as I struggled to keep my teenage hormones in check playing this game. You see, I could barely contain the cum inside what's left of my nuts when it came to the beautiful and gorgeous landscape of Jupiter's moon Europa, or the dreary, rainy environment of Titan. I couldn't contain my excitement, and one of the scenes in which you crash land into Mars, and it just looks so fucking wonderful. See, combining the scripting prowess of Call of Duty and the IW team with space is a fantastic recipe for a premature ejaculation from yours truly. Infinite Warfare has quite possibly the best visual and art direction in the franchise, period. It is baffling how gorgeous this game really is. I cannot put that shit into words. Let's get the obvious comparison out the way real quick. Does it compare to Titanfall? Sequel to the first Titanfall is regarded as one of the best first-person shooters of all time, and for good reason. The development team of Titanfall consisted of the same people who made Modern Warfare, so a comparison between the new team with their sci-fi shooter and the old team with their sci-fi shooter is inevitable. As sad as it is, Infinite Warfare doesn't even come close. The exosuit movement system barely gets utilized. The story is underwhelming once again. Titanfall excelled in having a brilliant movement system and in presenting a good story. IW falls short on both ends, though it does try to make up for it in its visual presentation and its sound design, no doubt. I love fighting on asteroids and shit, but god damn, the game still as linear as ever. Believe it or not, even with the vast emptiness of space and the endless possibilities within, you still find yourself following some motherfucker in a scripted hallway segment right in the first mission. Linearity is of course kind of a given when it comes to Call of Duty, so once you accept that and expect that, you'd be delighted to hear that at least the set pieces are fun and interesting this time around. You got cool ass dynamic enemies, hell you got a fucking boss fight, bro. My wish came true, goddamn. There are side missions that you can do here as well, although unlike BO2, that shit don't do shit when it comes to giving you a different ending, goddamn. It saddens me that the story just simply fails to be a memorable one. But one thing that stuck out was the theme of sacrifice. You always get it in any military shooter, you know, American soldier sacrifices himself for the safety of the common people, but it's hard to immerse yourself in that. Never do I come out of a scene depicting a soldier dying in war feeling emotional about it, okay? Not that it's not a sad thing, but the truth is, it's rarely ever done right. Infinite Warfare though puts you in the position of an experienced veteran, and as you go through your long and treacherous journey, you see all your mates go down one by one like a set of dominoes, and finally, you yourself do as well, right after finishing your task. Just another mission done, I suppose. The game ends with this showcase of the names of the fallen soldiers, engraved on a memorial headstone, your own name mixed in with all the others, and then the credits roll with your mates leaving you farewell messages. See, that shit was memorable. Miles better than Mr. Dogmall over here, let me tell you. What this game failed in, regarding the villains, was all made up for with the protagonists, I have to say. For all the bullshit 5-year-old me assumed about this game, God, I wish I'd meet that motherfucker. I sent him on an early trip to see God for real. There's something interesting to know here in that around 2015 to 2016, most people playing Call of Duty only really played for the multiplayer, or zombies if it's Treyarch. In fact, it came out that only 10 to 20% of all people who bought Black Ops 3 and Infinite Warfare ever completed the campaign across Steam and Xbox. The dip is really exemplified in this graph, showing the dip in the completion rate come 2015, compared to franchises like Halo and Gears of War that are relatively much steadier. And it's not a good look for Infinite Warfare as a whole when people judge it solely for its multiplayer, which admittedly wasn't the best one. And this is coming from someone who spent time trying to have fun. Keyword trying. I went back to Black Ops 3 for real. IW also tried out the worn out zombie shtick, and I swear if you dive deep into my Reddit post history, you can probably find some toxic ass hate against IW zombies, because the thing about 5-year-old me was that I sucked Treyarch's dick, and I rode that shit cowboy and went doggy style as well, because no fucking extinction, no fucking exo zombies ever came close to the holy Treyarch zombies, alright? I have this vague memory of traveling on down to the Cursed COD zombie subreddit and just ranting about how bad IW zombies was, and the funniest thing was, get this, I played that shit once, got to like round 12, didn't do shit in the map, and yet had the fucking audacity to spout the poison out the ass that is my mouth. And of course, nobody fucking asked, bro. People flamed the shit out of me in the replies. Actually, I'm not afraid to, mate. They call me bitchless, maidenless, tarnished, no alcoholic. And so I shamefully deleted the post in every single comment I'd ever made. What is Infinity Ward's first go at a traditional zombies mode is impressive, no doubt. In fact, I remember having tons of fun doing the Easter eggs that they had to offer. Yes, even fucking Shaolin Shuffle and coming back to it, it's nice. The worst thing people did was compared to BO3, the arguable peak of zombies and the objective peak of the zombies community. It was in no way going to or even meant to compete with BO3. I remember a lot of the YouTubers just not taking IW seriously.
Shaolin Shuffle.
It's here, dude. After escaping the lakeside cabin of horror, our four heroes find themselves time warped to 1970s New York. Holy discover that the inhabitants are undead as disco, man. It made you start out without a gun. That's pretty sick.
Oh, dude, look, it's a little star.
Did I pay money for this?
Alright, let's play this fucking game.
Of course, like the sheep I was influenced quite negatively by that as well. That's not to say it was their fault. Nah, it was 100% mine. I take full responsibility for my fuckery, bro. But in hindsight, I should have loved one thing about IW Zombies. I should have loved how it didn't take itself seriously. You had Black Ops 3 with its H.P. Lovecraft, Hidetaka Miyazaki, Bloodborne hentai fuckfest of a storyline. As good as I think it was, they took it way too seriously, bro. I can't. IW Zombies, on the other hand, knew it was goofy, so it just went along doing whatever. Lee Ross and his magnum opus consisted of a super Easter egg that had you fighting Satan himself as a reward. Dark Souls shit for real. Blondell's super Easter egg had the RK5 given to you when you spawned in. A 500-point weapon. I deserved that shit for being dumb enough to put months into the stupid ass game for real. Actual donkeys are smarter, I bet. But Blondie Boy's influence in IW Zombies was still there, you see. In fact, I'd be hard pressed if I were to consider that Blondell didn't outright co-develop IW Zombies, because you see, in the silly little Easter egg quest of the silly little map that goes by the name Attack of the Radioactive Thing, which has a giant crab just chilling in the middle of the ocean for some reason. The quest has you doing actual fucking chemistry. Like, I open up a guide for this map's Easter egg. I shit you not, I find instructions on how to make crystal meth. I got put on a watch list back in 2016. Me and the rest of the community on God. When I joked that Blondell had us doing quantum physics to merely turn the power on, I was just doing that. I was joking, okay? But Lee Ross takes it one step further. I'm a high school dropout, bro. I can't even pronounce half this shit. I don't know what this shit means. Therefore, I am convinced Blondie Boy had a heavy hand to play in the development of this game's zombie mode. This is just the type of bullshit he pulled off. It's obvious. I'm not even going to speak on the story of this game's zombie mode, as it was cancelled anyway and wasn't really anything deep, but the premise was that they traveled through key time periods like the 50s and the 70s, going around chasing this goofy ass dude called WWII. And in practically every map you have these key celebrities and influencers from their respective time periods helping you out in the main quest. And just like that, just by adding Elvira into the game, the one and only Mistress of the Dark, Infinity Ward had completely outdone everything Treyarch could have even hoped to achieve in their decade-long run. Let me tell you, this was exactly how I found out that I have an extremely huge thing for goth mommy GFs. I'm not afraid to admit, just as any other teenage boy wouldn't be afraid to admit. God, this map did more for me than Treyarch ever did for it. It's worth noting that I wasn't a huge fan of the last map, Beast from Beyond. I find it to be the least unique map the mode had to offer, as it just simply fit in with the rest of the game with its futuristic spacey vibe. Like, you could put that shit into the multiplayer and it'd fit right in, honestly. But the map certainly made up for it with the boss fight. Not only one boss fight, but two, ladies and gentlemen. As if the main boss wasn't hard enough, they had you fighting Lucifer himself as a reward for all the donkeys who completed every single Easter egg up to that point. And goddamn, man, even if you're not a fan of IW Zombies, you gotta admit, this shit is cool as fuck. I think this classified as an on-God situation more so than a for-real situation, seeing as how it's Lucifer and all, yeah. Even the quote-unquote bad maps like Shaolin Shuffle weren't all that bad. Hell, rounded up, I had the most fun in that map, believe it or not. I have a deep appreciation for Infinite Warfare. Hell, I know that I'm really falling into the classic COD fan cycle, but this game deserves some love for its creativity as well as its fun factor, as it did a lot of things right, and it was just simply overlooked by many, including myself, all because, oh, it's set in space. It truly is underrated, especially considering all the flack it got, and so I really wouldn't have a problem with putting this game in wood-kiss tier, right below the first MW, for real for real. After what felt like a bazillion years spent in the future, people were getting tired, just as they once got tired with World War II, which led to Modern Warfare's creation. Activision was in a dilemma, you see. They explored the past, they explored the present, now they fucking milked the future for all it's worth. What can they do now? If you guessed yet another World War II game, boy, do I have the extreme displeasure in telling you, yes, my darling, you are right. See, instead of doing the Vietnam War or the Korean War, or even giving the Cold War another shake, they decide to do something they've already milked and left dry. Cause fuck creativity, am I right, fellas, or am I right, fellas? There's nothing inherently wrong for Sledgehammer to be doing World War II again, seeing as how it's their first try at the setting. The problem is, the setting felt forced, as if it were for all the people bashing Call of Duty for its futuristic endeavors, bashing Infinite Warfare in particular, so that's for people like me. Forced settings are a big no-no when it comes to creativity, so it's no surprise that the campaign for 2017's World War II is a completely soulless one. My old mantra of mediocrity being worse than negativity comes back as strong as ever with this one, ladies and gentlemen, as I literally do not remember not so much as a single strand of hair on a rat's ass when it comes to this game. And I've beaten this game multiple times, bro. I got the platinum for this dog shit excuse of a game. That's how bitchless I was back then, for real, for real. Now, I must admit, I was exaggerating when I said I don't remember anything. I remember one thing in particular, and it's the funniest thing ever, because it's the scene in which you don't play the game and instead just walk around doing nothing. My favorite part in the game is the break from the actual game. That should tell you how bad the actual game is. And I remember thinking, whoa, cool spy section, I wonder where this goes. And with commentators curse rearing its ugly head, the game literally proceeds to go nowhere with the so-called cool spy section. That's about the whole game right there. Leave a like if you enjoy. It's an idea done right in Raven's Black Ops Cold War, set to release a few years later. They tried the spy shtick and it was somewhat nice, but we'll get to that pretty soon. What I dislike about this game is that it's yet another cookie-cutter soulless shooter meant to fill in for the slot of the annual Call of Duty game and nothing more. The campaign is hilariously bad and extremely forgettable. Being fun would be its saving grace. Unfortunately, this game is about as big of a snooze fest as you can possibly think of. It is mind-numbingly boring, Jesus Christ. It's annoying at times. The tank mission had some of the worst pacing of any COD mission I've ever played in this franchise. I remember taking me half an hour just doing nothing to proceed with a single objective. Shit's weird as fuck. And if you're thinking, oh, that game might be disappointing, but the story must be nice, right? This game is an insult to everything Infinity Ward and Treyarch stand up for. Holy fucking shit, is it surprising. It might as well have been an omen for what's to come in this franchise, and that it's just downhill from here. And needless to say, that's more or less true. Fuck Call of Duty World War II and fuck everything that it stands for. I haven't even gone to the zombies yet. Let me tell you about how disappointing the zombies was too. This woman glitching queen, God bless her heart, paid some random ass dude $30 for a leaked trailer of the new zombies mode, and goddamn must I say it looked interesting, alright? For once they were focusing on horror, it seemed. I would suck dick for a good horror game or movie. I'd suck dick for free, but shit, I'm making a point. It seemed that my desire for Treyarch to try horror again after Black Ops 1 would finally be met with Sledgehammer acting as my savior. God, I was so excited. I was so excited that I remember loading the game up for the first time and fucking ignoring everything else, man. I entered zombies immediately, the final like, and not one match later, I fucking shut that shit down and teared up at just how much of a fucking fool I was for thinking they could do jack shit right. I was so disappointed with this game, disappointed in myself that in the end God himself took pity and listened to my cries for help. You see, I bought and done wasted what little YouTube revenue I had at the time from uploading stolen music that didn't really belong to me actually, and I bought this physical copy of World War II for $60. I called it an investment, and as I was sitting there regretting my life choices post-release, I get this email from Activision. I shit you not, they sent me a free code to the game, bro. I nearly put this shit in the spam folder, but something told me to try the code out, and motherfucker, it was real. My fellow donkeys, I am delighted to say that God himself came through for me when no one else did. Fuck World War II and its dumbass zombies mode. What a shit excuse for a horror game. 972 consecutive jump scares isn't horror, it's lazy and soulless. The mode was not fun, and to top it all off, the Easter egg quest was so easy. I can barely understand the thought process, the team behind this entire game. Like, what is this cookie cutter garbage? Some people try to reason that the DLCs of this game were good. Bitch, I wasted a good portion of my life trying them out recently, and they are just as soulless and uninspired as the rest of this game is. Fuck this game, man. I am legitimately pissed I spent $60 in this game, and even though I got the game for free in the end by selling the physical copy and using the code Activision sent me for some goddamn reason, I still feel I've been robbed. This game did one thing right though. It made me more careful in my financial choices. Deadass younger me learned a hard lesson that day, but thankfully God came through at the end. He an OG. Unsurprisingly, Call of Duty is a fuck I hate Yanga. I want to stop talking about this game. It unironically gives me PTSD. Regardless, life goes on, and before you know it, it's 2018. It's time for Treyarch to release yet another game that makes up for all the transgressions of the other studios. The teaser finally drops with a cool recap of Black Ops 1, 2, and 3, some of it zombies, and oh, it's releasing in October instead of November as it always once did. I wonder why. But wow, I sure am excited for the new Treyarch campaign. They must have really learned from Black Ops 3. Guys, I am so funny, and so are the goofy-ass motherfuckers over at Activision, bro. Goofy-ass motherfuckers. I'm a cute guy over at Activision or Treyarch. I don't even know which company to blame anymore. Fuck all of them, alright? This cute guy thought it'd be funny and cute and silly to literally skip out on the campaign in favor of this Battle Royale mode, because believe it or not, this little game you may or may not have heard of, called Fortnite, was causing quite a bit of a ruckus internationally, and Mr. Bobby Boy over here, huge advocate for harassment and abuse in the workplace, by the way, wanted sloppy seconds. Come the community reveal, many questions are answered. Is this going to be a game with passion put into it? Is this game going to make up for the blunders of Call of Duty World War II? Should I even exist? This game being called Black Ops is an insult to everything the first two games stand for. Some guy is typing up a manifesto down there in the comments about how cool and creative these specialist missions are. Bro, I can only laugh. The only thing this game had to offer was zombies, and quite evidently, the hype was real, as you can clearly observe right here. One shot of premise in Mob of the Dead has the community coming gallons, bro. That's how dry shit was back then. It really does remind me of the MCU community now that I think about it. Bitches wait 5 hours for a post-credit scene for some goofy looking guy to say some goofy ass shit like, I'm Skippy McDippy, and they react like this shit, but like, oh, that's just like me, bro, for real. Of course, the actual game releases, and I have to say the gameplay is spectacular. Never has zombies been so blue. The game came with a record 3 full-fledged maps on disc, with a $5 remake of the BO1 map 5 to boot. They up and started a new ass storyline completely unrelated to the story we grew up with, and only did ether on the side with whatever was left of the budget of the new story. SFM animation looking at. As for the game itself, of course, it was plagued with glitches and crashes and blue screens and shit, but I'm willing to look past all that, seeing as how most, if not all of that shit has now been fixed. In my tenure of playing on PC for the better part of a year, I have yet to encounter a single crash, and that is a statement I wish I could have said on launch, bro. Playing IX and Blood of the Dead on the PS4, it was a time when completing the Easter egg was impossible, not because it was hard or because it was unsolved, but rather because the consoles were simply not ready for what Treyarch had to offer, bro. For real, that shit bombed quite literally as soon. Someone's PS4 has been permanently damaged by this train wreck of a game at launch, I bet. The cool thing about this game is how whenever I play it, I have fun regardless of whichever map. The important thing to know with this game is that you really need to take it less seriously than it asks you to. Just be a fucking casual and have fun, mate. That being said, IX is a top 5 zombies map for all time. Bye-bye. Voyage of Despair is probably the single most creative setting I've seen in zombies. The Titanic. Yet it's a map hated by many. I hate this map too, but it's more of the hate you show to your ex whom you still love and who still loves you back. And so you take your hate out on her by this is an extremely bad analogy. I hate it due to how tight and how it always has me coming back for more. But this map does horror in a peculiar way. Tension, claustrophobia, you name it, this map probably does a variant of it. I appreciate this map a lot for its beauty and for its tension, but fuck the boss fight. Holy shit, is playing Dark Souls with no hands, no eyes is easier than this shit. Black Ops 4 gets rid of the traditional perk system as Blundy Boy looked at how every single player literally gets the same 4 perks every time that they spawn in and felt it needed a change. I'm with them on this one in hindsight. Sure, the BO4 perk system and the health system as well needs a bit of getting used to, but it's nice having the option to just play zombies with random perks every match and just fucking around and finding out. Like, I miss that shit, man. It does not help how Dying Wish is going to be the perk everyone uses. Probably QR and co-op as well. And now you only have 2 out of 4 slots, one of which is probably going to be filled up with Victoria's Tortoise. All in a new system meant to fix the exact same problem it's now in. It really do be like, doesn't it? And so I come to give advice to you, my fellow donkeys. Be more like me. Literally ignore the meta and just have fun with the 18 or so perks you have at your disposal. It is much more fun that way. After all, to fuck around is merely human, but to find out is divine. You have the specialist weapon as well, which pretty fun to use. Grenades are now useful, and oh, they literally killed the usefulness of gobblegums. Good riddance, I say. The only thing limiting the use of gobblegums was the comeback later thing, preventing you from buying more gum after you've already chewed up enough sugar to warrant a diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. Elixirs, as they're now called, take like an hour to recharge if they're one of the free ones. I am with this change. In fact, I stacked up so many paid elixirs as I simply stopped using them, but I'm sure this will be somewhat of a shock to those that have gotten used to Black Ops 3. Blood of the Dead remakes the legendary mob and completely butchers the map and what made it good. I simply refuse to elaborate. Classified as fun and nice looking. I'm a fan of this map. Not so much a fan of how you have to survive 1 billion rounds to get the Easter egg cutscene. Treyarch be like, survive 150 rounds to get the cutscene. My brother in Christ, your shitty programming prevents me from getting even round 10. It's a nice play in that all the high rounders get some recognition for once instead of the usual big brain 500 IQ motherfuckers the community is known for. But how funny is it that when your game is so broken that people resort to glitching high rounds with the cartoon mode on because it's easier on the GPU at the PlayStation 4 apparently. And once you reach round 150, oh, the MP4 just plays. No foreplay, no nothing. Just like my high school sweetheart. 5 fingers, no waiting for real. And it came out that you originally needed to reach round 200, but that the team lowered it once they realized ain't no one getting past the blue screen. God damn. I find it funny how people used exploits to get this cutscene yet no one complained. But when they used exploits in Garage, everyone lost their shit. Now yes, there's a difference in that. In BO4, the crashes literally prevented anyone from reaching the round legitimately, but god damn, man, to me it seems that neither cases deserved any hit, but you do you, I suppose. Some people didn't like that you needed to reach a high round to get the cutscene. They'd be like, the classified Easter eggs really sets off the players who just like casually playing the game and doing Easter eggs. My brother in Christ, you have the entire remainder of the Zombies franchise for that. Let the high rounders have this one. Holy shit, my boys have been eating scraps for the better part of a decade, bro, for real. Because God forbid Treyarch makes an Easter egg quest in a wave defense game focused on wave defense and surviving waves. Am I right, fellas, or am I right, fellas? The DLC rolled around with some of the best and worst maps I've ever seen in my life. It's actually impressive how varied the DLC maps were. Dead of the Night being the first one. Terrifying map, as it's about the existential horror of having to spend a night in England. The map actually leaked in Australia with absolutely no trailer nor promotion. I'll say it again, they just up and dropped that shit like an Eminem album for real, and it baffled me why they do such a thing. Did the success of Chronicles mean nothing to them? Or was the launch that stressful that they just forgore to make a trailer? Like, they dropped that shit a week after it came out, like goddamn. As for the map itself, it's literally the shittiest map in Zombies history, period. Nothing about this map is good. People cried about Shaolin Shuffle, bro, at least that shit was fun, goddamn. The only redeeming aspect of this map is actually the song made for it, Mystery. Easy top 10 zombie song of all time. Extremely catchy, can't get enough of it. Good job once again, Kevin and Cole. Treyarch may miss at times, but you guys never miss, except for this remix. I still don't understand what the fuck this is. As for Asian Evil, man, it is actually my go-to map in BO4 after IX and Classified. I always have fun playing this map every time without fail. And I adore the weapons, like some creative shit right there, man, down to the trials you have to go through to get them. I love the mythology surrounding the weapons as well, like with the hand of Karen. For its quest, you gotta sort out these coins from the fake ones to pay the ferryman of the dead, Karen. See, in Greek mythology, it's believed that when humans pass, they all enter upon a ferry which passes through the waters of Hades to lead them to their final resting place. The ferryman chartering the boat being the minor god Karen. And it's believed that every person who enters his ferry must pay him a coin for his service. A common reason for why people put a coin in the mouth of the deceased before burial, as is tradition. Because if you don't pay the cosmic ferryman what he's owed, you'd be cursed in limbo to suffer an eternal, never-ending voyage of despair. No, not the Titanic map, smartass. Well, actually, wait, what if? It's shit like this I love Zombies for, man. It sends me down rabbit holes I never would have even cared about otherwise. The quest of this map can easily make a list of top 5 Easter eggs of all time. It is just brilliant, as is the cool boss fight, though. That's more quirky and fun than it is challenging, but I'll take it, bro. It seems I must confess something to you kind-hearted people. There is actually another reason for why I love this map as much as I do, and it would be great if it were the gameplay or the creativity, but I must bring forth the heavy-handed news that is reality. The reason I simply love this map is because of the ending cutscene, for real. Just when the new Chaos storyline was going somewhere, I mean, they really had us hooked with that banger of a finale. Banger is just what Scarlet wishes she did as well, but you gotta admit, JC's reaction sums it all up. Just when all that shit was going somewhere, they cancelled it. In fact, when I found out that it got cancelled back in 2019, this image was precisely my reaction to that information, believe it or not. The third DLC map, Alpha Omega, had Nuketown remade with an underground lair added in. You see, in Black Ops 2, the community was horny over the possibility of the players going inside the bunker, bro. The map was like 700 megabytes inside. So you really think they got shit hidden down there? Goddamn, bro. Oh, but they do. But only in the next gen, you see. The cool thing about this map is definitely how you can play as one of 8 characters, both the old and the new stereotypical guys we grew up with. They had something like 30,000 lines of dialogue written for the characters. Like, when you install Black Ops 4, it needs like 160 gigabytes to download. Probably like half that shit is just audio files for this map, on God. And that's a pretty decent map, you know, it doesn't really do anything amazing or bad or anything. You get to fight the Avogadro from Trance as a boss. That was pretty cool. Oh my God, the Easter egg is animated? How could you do this to me, Blonda? I trusted you! Bro, the people crying about about this shit in 2022 need to face the facts, alright? This shit looks low-key kind of cool. Way better than Mr. SFM animation over here. Jesus Christ, what happened to the animation team? Yeah, they ran out of budget. At least they gave a proper send-off to the zombie storyline many of us grew up with what they could. Just as with my 5-year-old sensationalist ass hopping on the Infinite Warfare hate train, you bet your sweet 2 nuts I hopped in on the animated cutscene hate train as well. And I'm ashamed of it. Bro, if I meet my younger self, bro, I'm gonna make him wish he confronted God instead. Because at least God is merciful, bro. You can't say that shit about me. It wasn't long after that I realized I could have my own opinions. That I don't have to conform to a minor toxic cesspool of the community. I fucking grew up. So no more dumbass donkey stories to tell, I suppose, but rest assured, once a donkey, always a donkey. I'm sure there's more donkery to come in the near future. The last map to close out the zombie storyline, now running for almost a whopping 11 years, ended up being Talk Your Tone, a remake of Call of the Dead, fitting, as the original had George Romero hosting it, the godfather of zombies as a concept. How poetic. The map excels in its visual presentation. Credit where credit's due, this shit looks fucking gorgeous. But the best part about the map is undoubtedly the tomfoolery you can partake in. Get someone who's never played zombies and tell them to shoot the thunder gun on the zipline. Oh, okay, I wonder what could possibly happen.
What the fuck?
Now it's kind of sad that in the final Easter egg quest of all time, you have an escort step as the final step. No boss fight, no bitches, no nothing. And you could argue that maybe that was the intention, you know? But bro, Zombies is known for going out with a bang with its final maps, but this was a whimper at best. Was it intentional? You tell me. As the final cutscene sort of had all the focus on it, maybe this cutscene was the bang Black Ops 4 went out with. I mean, that shit clocks in at 7 fucking minutes. I ain't watching that shit again. JC endures it much better than I can, let me tell you.
Is this like...
I think around 2019, I sort of stopped being emotionally invested in zombies. I mean, at least comparing it to 2016. I was kind of getting more and more distant, so to speak. I started to care less and less. Maybe a side effect of me growing up, I'm not sure. But I'm still practically a baby donkey as is, but I adore Tog in his final cutscene in that it gave me closure regarding this dumbass series I invested years of my life into for some reason. It's over, it's done. This closure meant a lot to me back then in 2019, and I can safely say that it was long overdue. At least we got an end to the Ether storyline. Thank God it didn't go on getting milked for decades to come. Zombies as a mode did though, and it speaks volumes in how I logged into Cold War. Got a bit of nostalgia hearing the damn theme play once more as I used to play when I was a fetus. Played a bit of the new map and just simply decided it wasn't for me and put the controller down. I'm glad I never put the controller down on Ether is all. Now this extreme bias that I have towards zombies saves Black Ops 4 from a fate living its life down in the this ain't it tier with AW. Or the fuck out of here tier with World War II. This game in reality is a broad tier game, but my bias, ladies and gentlemen, propels this shit up to Woodkiss right below IW. That's right, cope and seed. Now the funny thing about this franchise is how 2018's Black Ops 4 uses the same engine as 2005's Call of Duty 2. That's kind of fucking hilarious, bro. No wonder these games were like dog shit across the board. Granted, COD 2's IW 2.0 engine, a remade version of Quick Freeze engine, had a ton of updates throughout the year, so calling BO4's engine the same as Call of Duty 2's engine isn't inherently true. The reality is that it's more so a pile of dog shit spray painted golden with a ton of Febreze to mask the smell. But then 2019 rolled around and it just so came out that our beloved Modern Warfare franchise was getting a reboot. Why? The silver lining? New rebuilt engine that took 5 years to make, and shit, was it worth it? What wasn't worth it was wasting it on a reboot that shouldn't have happened. I don't know what the fuck happened to the team's creativity, but this really is an all-time low. Why does this exist? I was slightly optimistic though. Infinity Ward knows what they're doing here, I said. They didn't know what they were doing. You see, they might as well piss on the graves of those that created the original Modern Warfare. This game is the most lazy, corporate, soulless tribute to an otherwise virtuous original work. To call it a tribute is a slap in the face to the original team members. This game didn't have a new engine, it'd be a worse Call of Duty than World War II. This shit would be at the bottom. This shit is the most uninspired piece of shit IW has ever created, with a campaign worse than Ghosts, dare I say. What does this game stand for? There are many scenes depicting something controversial like the bombing scene or the gassing scene or the baby scene or the kid scene or that. You notice how many examples I'm bringing up? It seems as if the new team looked at what made the original game so good and thought, oh, it must be the shock value. Bitch, if you make everything crazy, nothing is crazy. I don't know what kind of moral they were pushing here. War is depressing and dark, seeing as how Captain Price shuns the opposition for their torture methods and barbarianism and proceeds to do the exact same shit as them. See, in MW2, Price sent a nuke towards the US and detonated it in space, killing some astronauts. He did that shit of his own accord. It established him and in turn you as not the good guys but merely the lesser evil. The new game does the same shit but still tries to push this narrative of you being the good guys who just get their hands dirty to make sure the world stays clean. Well, fuck out of here with that shit. I assure you, Mr. President, I merely threatened the enemy's innocent wife and child, as you know, someone's got to take their guns off. You know, playing through this, I immediately interpreted this scene as a method to establish that you're no better than the opposition. Consider my shock when I see the masses considering Price and his goons quote-unquote heroes. If your message was that the heroes are no better than the villains, did you even successfully deliver that message? It just comes across as a lazy attempt to recreate the magic of the original games. Typical corporate reboot, big cock but no cum, lots of visual flair but no substance. Shock value isn't some magic ingredient you can spam and use to make your product magically good. Is a cleanhouse mission supposed to make me feel something with the baby and the mom holding the detonator and shit when I've gone through like 50 set pieces in the game with similar tropes? World at War show the horrors of war with a couple lines of dialogue. This game takes 5 hours trying to do the same thing and embarrasses itself. What really bugs me is how the team tried to sell this game as something not meant to be political. A game in which they have a fictional Middle Eastern country attack a real European city. A game in which the villain is vilified for doing anything he can to win his fight, but Price is heroic for doing the same thing. A game in which the team copy-pasted a real-life US war crime and simply flipped it onto the Russians instead. I assure you, my fellow consumers, none of this is meant to be political. This game romanticizes war more than any other Call of Duty game released so far. It's based on aesthetic. You get to pretend you're this tough, hardened soldier fighting for the right thing. That's all it is. Most of the Call of Duty games prioritize style over substance, cock over cum. Typical corporate franchise, but if you were to use chemical weapons against the opposition, the game would simply frame it as a tough choice because the world needs to stay clean while we get dirty. Because that's exactly what they did in Modern Warfare 3. Creativity went out the goddamn window with this game when it comes to the writing. It is the most boring, soulless story in the franchise, period. Even the scripting prowess of the teams don't make up for that shit. The only credit I can give where credit is due is to the animation and sound design departments. While this game lacks an identity, with some of the worst visual direction I've ever seen, the actual gunplay and animations are spectacular. The sound design is phenomenal. The new engine of this game saves it from being the worst Call of Duty of all time, and it is with my judgment that I place it at the bottom of the this ain't it tier, right below Advanced Warfare. Because showing their complete lack of creativity off of MW 2019 was so successful, Treyarch wanted to do the same thing and reboot their beloved Black Ops franchise, except they couldn't even do that. They had to get so much help that the game practically wasn't even theirs anymore. Raven Software, developers of 2016's MW Remastered, set out to write the campaign of 2020's Black Ops Cold War, while Treyarch developed the multiplayer and zombies. For Raven's first attempt, they ran circles around IW and Treyarch with their recent works. I like this game because it tries out new ideas, alright? This game is a fucking identity, you see. The 80s Cold War aesthetic is brilliant, and they capitalize on the whole Black Operation spy shit with gimmicks like this stealth mission and mission planning and shit like that. This game's campaign and how it plays is quite similar to Infinite Warfare's campaign actually, and it helps that IW is pretty well rounded. There's a ton of nostalgia bait as well, of course, with Mason was teasing you and shit, and can't forget the numbers, of course, but when it comes to memorability, this game's fucking memorable, man. I still remember sitting my ass down playing this game on my newly built PC around the winter this game came out, and solving the puzzles and shit, being surprised COD tried new shit out for once. Now sure, the puzzles were pretty easy, like you gotta consider your demographic for real, but it wasn't exactly trivial, and it did justice to the theme of this game, centered around the spy CIA type beat shit. I also remember playing through the later missions when shit just fucking goes crazy, and you're suddenly playing the PT Silent Hill demo. As for the story itself, not much better than MW, admittedly. It's not nearly as creative as the original Black Ops games. And you know they rebooted this shit because Mr. Bobby Boy, advocate of harassment and abuse in the workplace, by the way, told him to. Cash is king, and so reboots are the only thing we'll be dealing with in this franchise going forward, because fuck creativity, I guess. The story deals with you playing as the Americans, literally dealing with a problem you yourselves practically created, and there's some nods to the original Black Ops games with the whole trope of both sides equal evil and propaganda playing a huge part for both and whatever the fuck. The message isn't too dissimilar from MW, I suppose, but it is delivered in a better way, and it does pay an okay tribute to the original Black Ops with the mind control shit and whatnot. Raven actually cared about the original's theme, and you can definitely see that, especially towards the end when the whole plot twist shit reveals itself. You have 3 endings. Sadly, the side missions and stuff don't actually play a huge part in determining which ending you get, but 2 endings in particular are the so-called bad endings, while the remaining ending is also technically a bad ending, but less so. For the bad endings, the shtick is that you're brainwashed by the Soviets, and it's basically like you lie to your CIA contractor and lead him to a false location for something that he wants, and he gets pissed and shoots you. Or you can unlock this secret area in the mission planning warehouse, and after you lie to your contractor, you can haul ass to the secret area in 1 minute and warn the Soviets and pretty much just nuke the entire continent of Europe. That's fucking base, bro, for real. The quote-unquote good ending of this game is that you basically tell the truth to your contractor, and after you save Europe and retrieve the DSM,
the flag may be different, but the methods are the same. They will use you as they used me. You must decide. Decide what you think is worth fighting for.
Yeah, you're a puppet regardless of whichever flavor you choose, red or blue. And at least it's a better execution than MW 2019, let me tell you. Not to mention that the campaign of Cold War is actually fun and the game has an actual identity. After Ether ended, it just so happened that they kinda wanted to reboot that bitch too with Black Ops Cold War, cause who needs creativity after all? They could've continued chaos, they could've made something new, but now fuck all that, I guess. Samantha Max is back and she's all grown up now, and oh no. The game mode changed dramatically, prioritizing casual gameplay and fun more than anything else. The secrecy and complexity of the Easter eggs went out the goddamn window, and a move that more or less divided what was left of the community. My first time playing this game, I entered the zombies first and foremost and just sat there, alone in the dark, listening to the 4th or 5th fucking iteration of the damn theme playing yet again. I lost count. A side game mode created for fun all the way back in World at War came this far, I pondered. I started the one and only map up and had some fun, not too much. I did almost everything the map had to offer in my first game, exfilled at a somewhat high round, and closed the game and went right back to Breath of the Wild and continued my second playthrough.
I'm going fair.
私の名は吉来義景、年齢33歳。自宅は森王町北東部の別荘地帯にあり、結婚はしていない。
It was immediately clear that the new zombies just wasn't for me. It was fun, it was very casual, I could play a game or two with my friends when I'm bored, but I'd still pick Black Ops 3 over any goddamn day. It just didn't feel unique to me. It didn't have much of an identity. It was intentional, you see. Their whole focus was to attract the mainstream, the streamers who only played multiplayer in Warzone, and they kinda succeeded, but it was in a move that did divide the community, and I still find myself identifying with the older games. Call that shit a gender. I'm glad they gave the original Ether a decent goodbye with Tog. I don't have much to be mad over, honestly. They can do whatever they fucking want with zombies going forward. I am not going to complain. They can cancel the hoe if they want. I really wouldn't complain. The maps aren't bad, but they lack identity. For someone who grew up with most of zombies, it just feels soulless, and it doesn't feel like zombies. The most baffling change was how they got rid of character quotes and personalities. One of the best things about the original zombies was how well written the characters were. They were funny, interesting, and thought-provoking when they needed to be. Cold War had none of that. There's also the Outbreak mode, which the team was severely horny over for some reason, and it's just this Warzone zombies crossover, and while the idea of open world zombies seems interesting, this was the most uninspiring attempt at such an ambitious idea. Like,
here's the real question, chat. Here's the real question. I'm gonna ask you guys a question. What do I do?
Good for you if you enjoy Outbreak, but even this mode with its objective-oriented gameplay wasn't anything particularly good. There was no hook. You try it once or twice and leave it at the gas station afterward. Weird thing is, even IW zombies somewhat felt like zombies. Even Black Ops 4 zombies felt like zombies, but this was just soulless to me. It does have its own fan base though. Again, good for them if they enjoy it, but the fact that the last map Forsaken came out with me not even knowing about it for a good few weeks cemented what I felt about this game. There was this particular incident where I reset my PC and I installed Cold War to benchmark my FPS, and I launched the game right, and it just so happens that the latest map at the time, Mauer der Toten, had just dropped. But I wasn't excited. Coming from Firebase Sea, which even though it was admittedly a decent map, I still didn't really feel hooked in. My reaction to seeing Mauer der Toten was literally just the live slug reaction. I am not making this up. I booted the map up and the familiar round change theme played, which had me reminiscing over what once was. Played through a bit, got both fast, and just Alt F4, never touching the map ever again. I can't say it's bad, it's not. It's just not for me. And I imagine my situation is similar to those that pick Black Ops 3 up and try zombies for the first time and just deciding it's not for them. Whether it was a complexity that threw them off or the fact that it was very different from the original Black Ops 1 zombies that they might have played with Kino and shit, they decided it wasn't for them. It's the same with me when it comes to Cold War zombies. 2020's Black Ops Cold War is not particularly creative. It does try out new gimmicks in the campaign and whatnot, but it's nothing mind-blowing. Bro, I still find myself asking, why the fuck was Black Ops rebooted? Just as with MW 2019, the answer is cash is king. With a decent 2OK campaign and a zombies mode that just isn't for me, I feel placing this game at the top of the bruh tier. And to close it all off at 2021's latest and greatest Call of Duty, we have Vanguard. The single best Call of Duty of all time. I actually love the zombies mode. I love that they completely got rid of the wave-based system. I love that Treyarch couldn't figure out how to code simple features like pausing a match in solo or round-based progression because working with the MW 2019 engine was just too hard, apparently. I love that they completely pissed on the new direction they were going for with Cold War even. And when it comes to the campaign, it is the best Call of Duty campaign of all time. It makes World at War look like a high school drama at best. I love this game so much I didn't even buy it. I didn't even know it came out for a good few weeks actually. The marketing was so good that a person like me who invested a good portion of his life into this franchise never even knew about it for a good while. I love this game so much actually. My fondest memory goes back to when I was over at a friend's house and he was telling me all about how he regretted buying the game and wanted me to try the new zombies out, and so I did. And 5 minutes in, he asked me, hey, this is going nowhere, wanna play some Smash instead? Sure. Me and my friends clowned on this game, and I have to state that my experience is a couple months old. The game could have substantially changed in the recent couple of weeks, I wouldn't really know, but from what I hear, they announced a wave-based progression not so long ago, I know that. And you can imagine the community's reaction to that information. It was crickets, actually. That bitch is mostly dead now, on God. I did get the opportunity to skim through the game's campaign, and it's unsurprisingly just as soulless as World War II was. The story made by Sledgehammer and the Zombies mode spearheaded by Treyarch, you'd at least think the Zombies mode would be good, but it really does seem that the mode went down the shitter after they got rid of Blundell, man. But you tell me. You tell me. They said the Zombies mode of Vanguard was being developed by Treyarch, but playing it myself, it didn't really feel like it was something Treyarch made. Like, I don't know if they're washed up now or if they fell hard, but it really goes to show how good they once were.
Oh, we don't get points for that anymore. That's no fun.
I realize that many team members still feel passionate about the product they deliver. Some of the team members are OG, not all of them left. But I don't know how to put this, okay? You have milked this franchise for as long as you can. Even the new shit you try out with Cold War, for example, doesn't really impress. You've already peaked. Maybe it's time for a new story and sub-IP instead of rebooting shit that was once successful. These games aren't exactly free to play. They go full price. They'll get judged as such. The endless sequels to Black Ops and MW were bad enough as is, and now you have the reboot shit. Like, they don't want to let go of the past. You know, I'm glad that there will be no new Call of Duty in 2023, but the sequel to MW 2019 is still going to come out this year, and I honestly can't say I'm excited. They are limiting themselves severely when it comes to creativity, and sadly, it shows. If for some reason the game turns out to be a masterpiece, I'll be the first one to praise it. A donkey can dream though, I suppose. Only Microsoft may be able to pull this franchise out the shitter. And so with that, Spec Ops: The Line is undoubtedly the best shooter I have ever played in my life. So good! I'll have to create a new tier above Wood Smash just for this occasion. Yeah!